Sports Talk on a Thursday. Thank you so much for joining us. Jake LeBon, Brendan Dorzinski, Dan Lucero with you on this Thursday edition as we will talk lots of Chiefs. We'll talk a little college football, some Royals news. That's right, the Royals making some literal money and roster moves today as they officially announced the signing of Seth Lugo. We'll see if there's any more smoke and fire when it comes to the Kansas City Royals. We'll talk with Paul Myerberg. We'll talk with Rick Peterson, Mitch Holthus. We'll hear from the coordinators, Matt Nagy and Steve Spagnuolo. So lots to discuss here on this edition of 580 Sports Talk. As always, let us know your thoughts on our text line, 785-272-9429. Very simple, very easy. If you want to let us know your thoughts, you can check us out on our stream as well. You can go to our YouTube page. You go to youtube.com, type in 580 Sports Talk. It's real simple, real easy to get involved with. And then you hit the subscribe button and you can interact with us. It's a lot of fun. You'll catch all the videos that we put out there here on 580 WIVW and 580 Sports Talk. So we will talk plenty of Chiefs. We will talk a little bit more about Patrick Mahomes coming up here in just a little bit. But I want to ask a simple question that I think will answer if you think the Chiefs will win the Super Bowl. And I think you can answer that question on December the 14th. I really do. First of all, do you think the Chiefs can get the 1 seed? I think they can, but odds are says that they probably won't. Okay. So if you get the 1 seed, how many games do you have to play to get to the Super Bowl?
2 to get there.
Just two, right? If you are not the 1 seed, how many games are you going to have to play to get there? You have to play 3. And then in the Super Bowl would be number 4. Okay. Right now, we have talked about the Kansas City Chiefs and their struggles of turning the football over, not catching passes, and the mental mistakes, right? Do you think the Chiefs can play 3 straight games without having the amount of mistakes in order to win a game? Because we know the Chiefs right now, they can't have, you remember it was a game against the Jacksonville Jaguars, I think a couple years ago, where they had 3 turnovers or even 4 turnovers and they still won the game by double figures. Do you remember that?
I think it was last year in the regular season. I think they turned it over.
Was it last year?
Yeah, they turned over 3 times and they won that game.
But they won the game by double figures. It was one of the few times
they won by 10. Yeah,
that a team was -3 in the turnover margin, yet still won by double figures.
I think that was last year.
I know it's against the Jaguars, but we know that you know, if you have one turnover in a game, you can come back and win that game.
Mm-hmm.
Hard to do it with 2, right? Hard to do it with the turnover and then some other bad plays where you've got, penalties and, dropped passes, that type of thing. It's hard to win. Like, can you win a game with just 1 turnover if you're the Chiefs? Yes, you can. You definitely can. But my question is, can they win 3 straight games to get to a Super Bowl without committing enough self-inflicted plays? The answer to me is, do I think that they can play in a game without self-inflicted wounds? Yes, I do. I think that they can do that, right? Do I think that they can do that for 3 consecutive games? Will they go 3 straight games with either 1 turnover or fewer? Or if they do have a turnover, they don't have another, disaster play, or they don't have a turnover, but they've got a couple disaster plays, if you will, when it comes to the attention to detail stuff. And my answer is, no, I don't. Like, I really don't. I think they can do it once. Do I think they can do it in back-to-back games? Maybe. Do I think that this Chiefs team right now on December 14th can play a game against 3 consecutive teams in the postseason Now, maybe it's different this year, and this is where it to me makes it a fun conversation. The teams that are going to be in the playoffs don't really scare you. Is there a team that you go, oh dear, if you are the Chiefs right now? You could be playing the Steelers in the first round. That's not that terrifying. You could play the Colts in the first round. That's not terrifying. You could play the Browns in the first round. That's not terrifying. So maybe it is like, hey, you know what? They could screw up a couple times a game and still end up winning. But can they do it 3 consecutive games in a row without beating themselves? I don't know if they can.
You go back and look at the full schedule from this year, and the Chiefs' best stretch was the Week 2 win against the Jaguars through the win against the Chargers. That was 6 straight wins.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you can look at several of those games and say that while things weren't exactly crisp, like I think of the Jets game in New York, whenever it was Zach Wilson was getting made fun of because he's a bum and he's not very good. And then all of a sudden he had his best game of the season until last week in that game in Week 4 against the Chiefs. But all things considered, was there any part of that game where you're like, the Chiefs aren't going to win?
No.
Like, we joked about that game, right? I texted you guys, and we joked about it on the post-game show that I said, well, we might just do post-game in the third quarter because this game is going to be over.
And then it became a game.
It became a game, and the Jets came back, but that was a game where you never really felt like the Chiefs are actually going to lose.
This is the capital the Chiefs have, though, with how well they've played and how much they've been able to pull games out in the late stages. Other than the Denver game, I can honestly say that I have not expected the Chiefs to lose a game until it was mathematically impossible for them to win it.
And then that's what I'm getting to here, is that even during that best stretch of the season, was the competition all that difficult? No. I mean, the Jaguars are a good team, but you killed the Bears. They stink. The Jets aren't very good on offense. The Vikings are, it doesn't matter if they make the playoffs or not. No one thinks they're all that competent. The Broncos at the time were playing terribly. That was the first time they played. And the Chargers, well, we know the Chargers is the Chargers. We know exactly what they are. So the competition level was not all that great. But by the same token, if the question is simply, do you think they can do that? Well, my answer is yes, because they've shown even when they do stumble a little bit, they can still win games by double figures. They have the ability to blow out a team who is beneath them. So if you look at, say, the Steelers, now the Steelers have a much better defense than the Bears do, for example, but you could say, do you think it is possible the Chiefs could win this game and show decisively for 60 minutes they're the better team than that? Or they are a better team than whoever they're facing? I think the answer would have to be yes. If you're saying, do they have the ability to go 3 games, 4 games even, if you're going to include possibly making a Super Bowl without getting a bye? Can they go that long and look like the better team and feel like they're going to win all of them? My answer would be yes. The counterpoint to that is then what we have seen in the last 4 weeks, or really, if you want to extend it out, the last 6 weeks when the Chiefs have gone 2-4 and say, well, they've played better teams and all of a sudden they haven't shown the ability to do that. So I think I know I'm giving you the cop-out answer here, but I think you can make an argument either way. I would lean towards saying they can, but I would like to see that again. And even though the competition level drops off here in these last 4 weeks, I would like to see that again before we get to the postseason to feel really confident about that.
When you're flipping a coin over and over again, whether you flip heads or tails has no effect on whether or not you flip heads or tails the next time, right? It doesn't make it more or less likely. It's either going to be heads or it's going to be tails. To a more sports-related point about that, famously, the We Are Family Pirates, 1979, they were down 3-1 in the World Series, I believe, that year to the Baltimore Orioles. And Willie Stargell famously said, hey, all we need are 3 one-game winning streaks. And we've done that a lot this year. We've had a lot of one-game winning streaks. And they had 3 one-game winning streaks. And that's what propelled them to their world championship that year. So that's how the Chiefs kind of have to approach this. We've been looking big picture, right? Because when you start a season as a Super Bowl, not just a contender, but as a favorite, everything is geared toward get right for January, get into the field, and put yourself in the best position to benefit with as high a seed, as easy, relatively, a run as you can have through January. Get yourself to the Super Bowl and let the chips fall. But I think now, after this 2-4 stretch where a lot of things have gone wrong for the Chiefs, a lot of things that are correctable have gone wrong for the Chiefs, this is a team that could probably benefit from a more short-term approach. An approach that says, let's not worry about winning out. Let's go on 4 one-game winning streaks to end this season. Let's go beat New England and go from there. Let's beat the Raiders and ruin their Christmas and go from there. So I think we have looked big picture for so long and been able to do that with previous editions of the Chiefs because they have been dominant. This team just has to get it together 1 week at a time. It's a cliched phrase, one of the most cliched in the book. But we talked about this yesterday. There has not been a time this year where I felt like the Chiefs are out-talented. I don't think anybody is going to out Jimmy and Joe, the Chiefs. There are teams that are close. It's not a gulf talent-wise between the Chiefs and whoever they're playing, but I wouldn't put anybody ahead of them talent-wise. I really and truly would not. And that's going to give you a chance week in and week out if you are able to play relatively clean football.
Dan, don't ever tell anybody that, if you, I don't say hit black 5 straight times that, red's going to pop up. Okay.
Momentum is not real at the casino. It's not.
That is a bold-faced lie, Dan Lucero. And I will tell you that anyone who stands there at the roulette table with 5 straight reds highlighted, that red will show up again. That does factor in, Dan, and I don't care about your math. Isn't that wild, though? That's so true. Well, 7 straight reds. Put it all on black. It's due, right?
Yeah.
It's due. They're due
Sure
for
it is.
black. It's due for hitting black, right, on the roulette table.
All I'm saying is if you owe me money, I need you to pay up before you do that.
Krusty, are you telling me you bet your life savings on the Washington against the Harlem Globetrotters? Not the Generals were due. He's spinning the ball on his finger. Just take it.
Have I told you about the time where my freshman year at Washburn, we went up to the casino and a guy on our football team got his Pell Grant money and he got it cashed for $2,000. And every semester we would go up to the casino and he would put $2,000 down on either black or red.
I wouldn't do that.
I'm telling you, I have never been more alive watching somebody else gamble than a 19-year-old. At that time I was I was 20 years old, and I remember walking in there. And I got in there because I had a fake ID, and watching that individual put his money. The first time I saw it, he won. He won They put $2,000 on black, and it hit black.
Not for me.
My palms were sweaty for him. It was amazing.
Not for me.
Anyways, when you said that, Dan, I was like, oh, man, there's a lot of people in this world, especially who are at a casino right now, are looking at that going, it's true. One game, and I am a firm believer in momentum is not a thing game to game, but it is a thing during a game.
Okay.
I don't think, because you won on Sunday means you're going to win next Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think if you're a baseball team, you win on Monday, you're going to win on Tuesday.
Momentum is the next day's starting pitcher, is the saying
exactly,
in baseball.
Yeah. I do believe momentum in a game where, it feels like you're running uphill and they are running downhill.
And the game in Denver for the Chiefs is the best example of that this year.
Everything just seemed to, I believe in Murphy's Law in a game because that was the Denver game. And no matter what we do, it just seems like it's not working. But that's if they play well these next 4 games, will that change your mind going into the playoffs?
Yes.
See, I don't think it will. It will not change my mind. And the reason why is these 4 teams are not any good.
Yeah, but if you take care of business against bad teams.
Yeah, that's what good teams are supposed to do.
So in that situation, then the vibes will just be different.
Let me add an addendum to the point you made, because I think you're right about momentum being more of an in-game thing than an on-the-schedule thing. But I do think what is an on-the-schedule thing is confidence. And if you've suddenly got a group of not very good wide receivers who feel like they're good wide receivers, that means something, I think. I think that is a vital part going into the postseason.
They go out and beat New England 41-10 on Sunday. You're telling me that doesn't lift this group? That doesn't maybe get them back in the locker room thinking, all right, we have hit the reset button, and now we're, as Patrick Mahomes put it 2 weeks ago, go zone is engaged.
They've been trying to get in the go zone for a while.
Still time to get there. Time running short. Runway, you're running out of runway, but
I don't know if it will, simply for the fact that it's the Patriots and it's Bailey Zappi and it's Aiden O'Connell and it's Easton Stick or Max Duggan.
Here is the Chiefs and the Patriots are the Vegas knows something game of the week, because the spread should be 48 points. It's Chiefs by 8.5. You couldn't, like, what's the biggest spread in the NFL this year?
This year?
Like 15, 14?
Something like that, with like
14.5.
The Cardinals maybe in the 49ers?
No, what wasn't Cowboys Cardinals pretty one side, and then of course Cardinals won that game.
Yeah.
I want to know if I can find that. Okay, here we go. The Cowboys were favored by 17.5 against the Giants. And the Cowboys won by 32 points.
Yeah, that was the first DeVito start, I believe.
This game should be in that neighborhood. You're telling me the Chiefs, off of 2 losses, off of a loss in which they were not embarrassed in the sense they got blown out, but embarrassed for how the game ended to the Bills last week, up against literally Bailey Zappi. You're telling me they're only laying 8.5? What do the bookmakers know?
Let's talk to him. All right. If you think, is that going to be one of your picks?
Yeah, duh.
You're taking Chiefs minus 8.5?
Yeah, I'll take Chiefs. Give me an alternate spread. Yes.
That can be one of your extra bets this week.
All right, fine. I'll call my shot right now. This week, we're going to go with Chiefs on the spread for my NFL pick, and the wild card is going to be Chiefs alternate spread.
What's the alternate spread?
I don't care.
What are we doing, Dan? What are we
be whatever he wants.
Minus 10?
I can get.
It's got to be at least minus 10, because it's got to be at least a 1.5 different than your current bet.
I can get 10.5 at FanDuel. I'll take 11.5. Give me 12.5. I don't care. Murder ball game.
It should be, but the Chiefs
Hunter Henry going to be their leading receiver, 1 catch, 8 yards. Going to be a bloodbath. Usually when I say this about the Chiefs, it really ends poorly for me, like Super Bowl 55. However, I think this is a blowout spot. I really do.
He said minus 12.5. We do have to put a certain stipulation, though, if you're gonna.
Here's the thing, though. The juice on that over at FanDuel right now, that's only plus 150. That's 4 more points for barely any sort of actual profit.
Wait a minute, plus 150 for what, minus 11?
From 12.5.
8.5 to 12.5 is only plus 150?
Yeah.
Wow.
But that's actually horrifically bad value.
Terrible
that's
value.
Really bad value.
For 4 points?
4 whole points.
Wow. That's crazy. That's a good little find there.
All right, I've changed my opinion. Vegas is trying to sucker you into taking the Patriots. They're trying to make you believe Bailey Zappi is going to be Patrick Mahomes. Don't let them.
Wait, Brendan's we already know one of his picks.
We already know 2 of them. That's 2.
Can we do? Is that allowed, Dan?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it.
So what's the number though? We have to agree on a number, because if it's like,
we got to give him like a no man's land number. Like, you can't give him 10 in the hook. No, that's too easy.
No. Yeah,
you got to be like 12 in the hook.
Fine.
No, Brendan. Brendan.
Fine. I'm already in last place. I need to make moves.
You know, deal.
If I can get 2 on 1 game, I'll take it.
So, Dan, right now, we got to agree with it.
Yeah.
12.5. You can do it at 12.5.
Money on the table.
Do you remember the last time I told you that this was going to be a lock guarantee, and you picked Oregon to cover the 14.5 over USC, and it did not work out.
It did not work out.
It did not work out. You're like, fine, Jake, I will pick that one. I was like, good, because I think USC is going to backdoor cover.
I'm due,
and they backdoor covered, Dan. They definitely did.
I don't even think it was a backdoor cover. Dorgan just never got up by more than like 12 the whole game.
Oh my goodness. Well, we'll get our picks tomorrow. We'll get to all of that. We'll get a timeout. Coming up next, talk about Patrick Mahomes, and then Paul Myerberg stops by.
For you guys, I know we're going to talk Chiefs here, but I want to get to it because I have to leave the show early today. So I want to make sure we get to this trivia question. Who has more career wins above replacement? Seth Lugo, new Royal starting pitcher, or former well-traveled shortstop Julio Lugo? More career wins above replacement.
Seth Lugo.
I'm going to say Julio. He played for a long time.
12 years for 7 teams. How do you play for 7 teams in 12 years?
I don't think he was a particularly good guy. I think there was a DV incident. I hope I'm not wrong about that because that'd be a hell of a thing to pin to a guy who didn't do that. I better double check.
The answer is Julio Lugo. 13.5 wins above replacement in 12 years. Not like Hall of Fame stuff by any means. Seth Lugo in 8 seasons is at 10.3 wins above replacement.
Yeah, good. He'll pass him this year.
With a great year, he might. Now,
there was an assault charge on Lugo's record regarding his wife. He was also arrested.
Make sure you do. Which Lugo?
Julio. He was also arrested in the Dominican Republic in 2015 for kidnapping a couple and holding them at gunpoint. He's also dead. Julio Lugo. He died in 2021. He had a heart attack.
Oh,
way to bring that up. Man, awesome, Brandon.
Okay. Well, all right. Oh, well,
I missed the answer. What was the answer?
Julio Lugo.
Julio Lugo.
I thought that was right.
Julio Lugo. Okay. Well,
not a nice guy.
I apologize. Yeah, not a nice guy.
Could have done another Seth.
Seth Lugo will probably pass him in wins above replacement after next year. He's never had more than 2 wins above replacement in his career. But maybe this year. He's also only been a full-time starter like 3 seasons, not even like 2 seasons.
Yeah, he's been a reliever. Who has more wins above replacement, Seth Lugo or former Rocky and A Seth Smith?
Seth Lugo.
Seth Smith.
It is Seth Smith, 11.6.
I don't know any other Seths.
Have the Royals been fleeced? No, I'm kidding.
Probably.
A lot of Seths. Former Royal reliever Seth Maness.
I don't know.
There are 5 active Seths, or at least 3 appeared in the major leagues last year. You have Seth Brown of the A's, Seth Martinez, I believe, for the Astros. There's also Seth Beer, former first-round pick, who has kicked around a bit. What didn't appear in a big league game last year?
Seth Cohen was Adam Brody's character on the OC.
California.
Oh, God.
Here we come.
California. Oh, yeah. I remember watching that in college.
My sister was a big fan of the OC, so I watched a decent amount of that growing up.
This has been 580 Seth's talk.
Yeah.
I don't know any personally. I don't know
the only other Seth I know is former Sporting Kansas City defender Seth Sinovic.
There's a Seth used to work here on the sales side of the
Well,
business.
I'm talking about like sports.
We did have a coworker.
Sports.
I was saying
aspect
I
of
don't
it.
know. Seth Rollins, professional wrestler. That's not his actual name, but his stage name is Seth. So yeah, we worked with a guy named Seth very briefly, and other than that, I don't think I've ever met one.
Yeah, I think I may have gone to third grade with a Seth, but that's a long time ago.
That is a long time ago.
Yeah, you're old.
The hell, guys?
I'm messing with you. It wasn't that long ago.
Where did that trivia question come up?
Well, I have to leave the show early, and I found that out today, and I wanted to make sure I got it
This one is a really good trivia
I wasn't going to be around for Royals talk. I just wanted to get it in. Sorry for giving you content. God.
Well, we might not even get to the Royals.
Well, you teased that the Royals were going to come up. At some point today, someone will talk about the Royals.
That is true. That is true.
And I won't be here for it, so I wanted to share. Whatever.
Thank you for that dynamite trivia stat.
Now you learned something. Every day you want to learn something. You found out today Julio Lugo died.
And wasn't a very nice
And was
man.
also apparently a really bad person. I'm here to educate. You found out that there's a guy named Seth Beer somewhere.
I'm sorry. I didn't even know who Seth Lugo or Julio Lugo was.
He played for
Good immaculate grid answer, Julio Lugo.
Yeah, I didn't realize he
Red
played for that
Sox,
many teams.
Ray.
Oh man.
He was on a bunch of teams.
Played 22 games with the Braves.
Oh man.
Reminds me, I forgot to do the grid today.
Yeah.
Busy morning.
When in doubt, just type in LaTroy Hawkins for baseball and you're good.
I need a Royals shortstop for a minimum of one game.
Oh man.
Angel Baroa.
That's a good
That is
answer.
Rookie of the year.
Rookie of the year.
Anytime there's a shortstop for the Royals, I go Micah Velas, man. I loved Micah Velas.
Micah Velas is a strong answer.
I loved
Kurt Stillwell? Was he
loved Micah
Kurt
Velas.
Stillwell a Royal?
Buddy Biancalana. Anytime you can use Buddy Biancalana.
Hey, I don't think I've ever used Buddy B in the grid before.
Wait, so all he has to do is had played shortstop one time?
One time.
Mark Grudzielanek.
Grudzy's a good answer.
Grudsy
Grudsy played 4 games at short in 2006.
You're not allowed to look it up, Brendan.
3% of game players
I'm not
today
filling it out.
answered Buddy Biancalana.
Yeah, Buddy B. That's world champ Buddy B, by the way.
Also need a Royal Angel. Never mind, I got one. Chili Davis.
Jason Vargas.
Yeah.
One of either
I need a Royal Tiger as well.
a Royal Tiger.
Oh, yeah, you got to go. Vote Omar. Vote Omar.
Omar Infante is a good answer.
Vote Omar.
I was going to go Al Albuquerque.
Yeah. Jabba.
Yeah, Jabba Chamberlain. That's right.
Jabba.
Man,
Wow,
I
Omar
forgot he
Infante-
was a Royal.
Omar
Jabba.
Infante was 12%. Thanks for tanking my rarity score.
You didn't have to. You should have went with Jabba. You should have went with Jabba. Jabba was a good one. Coming up next, we're going to talk with Paul Myerberg on all things college football. We are talking all things college football with the man who knows college football better than anybody. He is Paul Myerberg of USA Today, usatoday.com. You can follow him on Twitter at Paul Myerberg. Paul, how are you doing today?
Gentlemen, doing well. Good to talk to you again.
Paul, Navy took care of business in the Army-Navy game. You decided not to go to it, which, by the way, we thought that was a huge flex where you're like, yeah, I might not go to the game. Very strong flex.
Maybe I'll just go see the Heisman ceremony instead.
Yeah, there was a very strong flex, Paul. I'm not going to lie to you.
Yeah. I'm just doing what I got to do.
Yeah.
It's a tough job, but
light work.
Someone's got to do it, It's just tough.
What's the best part about watching the Army-Navy game? Because I even watched a little bit of it on Saturday.
I think the best part of the game is, well, I'll tell you, again, flex. Best part of the game is going before, and you're in the press box, and every single group of midshipmen and cadets will file onto the field and then file into the stand. It kind of looks like, again, not to equate these two, but it kind of looks like, ships getting onto Omaha Beach, like groups of guys, just like 50 guys side by side, 100 deep, filing into the stands. That's really awesome. But to me, the best part of the game itself is, again, afterwards, when you have the singing of the anthem. I just think that's a really awesome tradition that is unmatched. I mean, you can sing Carmen, Ohio after you beat Purdue at Ohio State, but it doesn't carry the same weight. So it's really an awesome tradition. It's one of the best traditions, I think, in college sport.
So is that one of, if you're a die-hard, CFB guy, if you're a big college football guy, you need to get to the Army-Navy game one time in order for, like, instead of going to, the shoe or going to the big house or LSU at night, you're saying go to the Army-Navy game.
Yeah, I mean, I would say to do all of them, right? But if it is a bucket list item. If you're a true college football fan, and look, this is not to say, like, if you live out in LA, it's easy for you to get to these games because they're Baltimore, Philly, FedEx. You're not seeing a lot of variety off the East Coast for good reasons, but it is a bucket list item, and it's a cool game. Also, it's a different crowd. Like, you go to a lot of college football games, do you know what kind of crowd you're getting? This is a different crowd of people at that game, as you might expect. So it's easily the most respectful audience of both sides of any college football game you'll ever go to. So it's decidedly unique. So yeah, if you get a chance, absolutely try to catch that game.
Are there any booing? Because I feel like, they don't want to boo.
No.
There's no booing.
Never booed. And I'll tell you, so I was at the game I deep cut. Trent Steelman was a quarterback for Army in the mid-2010s.
Yes.
Yep.
And he fumbled the ball, fourth down near the goal line, and Navy won the game. And it was the most moving thing that I've ever seen in a college sports event. Easily, it was watching him lose it. I mean, for good reason. I'm not questioning it. And then be comforted by, hey, here's a 4-star general and here's an admiral. And that's the camaraderie that you get, like, from 0.1 second before kickoff and then 0.1 second after kickoff. So no, I've never, ever, ever heard a boo at an Army-Navy game, and I doubt I ever will.
All right, let's get to the Heisman ceremony. Thought, I'll check it out. Were you surprised at how wide of a margin it was?
No, I think that way, guys. Like, I thought if Bo had gone out in the Pac-12 game, and I mean, not just won the game, but had gone out and done what he had done all season long, and just like as a guessing line, he's 25 of 35 for 275 with 65 on the ground and 4 touchdowns. I think it would have been a really, really close race. But look, looking at the final, it probably would have been Daniels either way. But once that game was final Friday and people sat down and those who held their votes decided to cast him, it felt pretty obvious. The weird thing about Daniels, guys, is, like, not to detract from his season, not to detract from his career. He's a lot like Joe Burrow in terms of what he did as a senior. He's just one of those Andre Ware, Gino Torretta kind of Heisman winners to me in this moment. And not to say he could not have a great pro career, but he really flew under the radar, like, this whole year. And I know people shared his highlights and talked about him and wrote about him. But he is one of the most inconspicuous Heisman winners that I've had, at least in my professional career. And it just seemed that way all season, that he was kind of in the radar, off the radar, in the background. And we were talking about Nix and Penix and other guys. And then slowly, 500 yards this week, 400 next week, it became a foregone conclusion. He didn't put a Heisman stamp on this season. I don't think he ever had a Heisman moment. So it's a really uniquely successful guy to do it despite not having that. But I did miss that moment from him, and I do feel like when we look back on Jaden Daniels, I'm not sure what his legacy is really going to be beyond being a Heisman winner, and that's enough. But he's not an all-timer, I think it's fair to say.
All right, let's get to some current topics to discuss, and it's the place to be. I don't know if you've been in there, but the portal, it's the place to go to, Paul. Everybody wants to go to the transfer portal, and it's fantastic and it's great. When it comes to just the overall transfer portal right now, how many guys are going in the portal because they want to change their spot, or how many guys are going to the portal because they say to themselves, I can make legit money? We heard Matt Rule 2 weeks ago say, costs $1.5 million right now if you want a good quarterback. You know, it makes me wonder why McCord from Ohio State's going into the portal. Why would you leave Ohio State right now? Like,
that's a really unique example, and it's a good one to cite because McCord to me is a guy who's getting into the portal not for the NIL cash, not for the money grab, but not to call it a money grab, not for the cash, but because he just feels like what Ryan Day said about him at the end of his end of regular season press conference, just I think rubbed him and his family the wrong way. Just a lack of confidence. And look, you got 1 year to cash in and 1 year to play, 1 year to start. That's McCord for you. I want to dig into this, and I want to give a better answer than this. My perception of it, not being able to speak to these guys at this moment, is that you're seeing a growing number of guys enter the portal from schools that are not Ohio State and not even Nebraska, which has huge NIL money, but they're entering the portal because they do want to make some more money. And God bless them. Go make that money, because 99% of these guys are not going to make money on the pro level. So make it right now. But by and large, like Dylan Gabriel leaving OU, he's not leaving OU because Oregon will pay him more. We know that. He's leaving OU because Jackson Arnold's over his shoulder. He's probably not going to have a chance to play as much as he did in 2024 and be the starter unquestionably going forward. So that's like, there are still guys who are doing it for the right reasons and are using the portal for the right reasons. But yeah, and I think the onus doesn't fall on the player who's trying to get NIL money. The pressure falls on the coaching staffs who are evaluating these guys to evaluate why he wants to come to your school. Not like because he wants to fit in your 4-2-5 defense. It's because he wants to get NIL money. That's a problem. So it's requiring, as you guys I'm sure have heard and seen, it's requiring so much more work on the behalf of these coaching staffs to get this in order at a time of year when you're prepping for a bowl game or prepping for the playoff, that it's not tenable. So I do think in the next 12 to 18 months, we will see some pretty significant changes in the calendar at least.
We're talking to Paul Myerberg, who covers all things college football for USA Today. You can go find his work as well at usatoday.com. He joins us for the Big 12 Breakdown every Thursday at this time during the college football season on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. You mentioned Dylan Gabriel. I think that's a name that really stands out. Of the guys who have committed to new schools so far, whether they be quarterbacks, other positions, what have you, what are some of the things or the moves, Paul, that you think have been some of the best or most interesting fits so far?
Yeah, I would start with Gabriel because, I mean, look, like he's someone who is not only produced at a group of five and a power five level, but he's someone whose skill set to me really translates well to what Oregon was in 2023. And not to say that he's going to be exactly like Bo Nix. I think Bo Nix was a uniquely athletic guy, probably is a little bit, not a little bit, is decidedly more athletic, I think, overall than Gabriel. But I just love the fit. I love what the fit, like not just from a talent perspective, but just from a person perspective, because we know how important Gabriel was to OU in 2023. I think if Oregon wants to take the next step next season and really make noise in the Big Ten, Gabriel to me is like, he's a 5-star addition. Absolutely terrific. To stay in the Big 12, Malik Murphy, I'm so interested in where this guy lands coming out of Texas. I really am, because if he lands in the right spot and he's in a position where, yeah, obviously he wants to start in 24, but he's surrounded by the right people in the right scheme. All I'm hearing about this guy since he entered the portal is that he's got this Heisman level talent as well. And that's a lot to put on his shoulders. But like with that kind of eligibility that's left, with what he showed in doses when he started for Ewers this season, that's a guy to really, really keep an eye on. I would bet that he probably lands at an SEC school because of the draw for a guy who's huge, got a big body, got a big arm, has a lot of room for growth. You're talking about NIL money. There's a school out there that's going to pay Malik Murphy like he's a 5-star established Heisman winner right now, because there's a lot of potential for him. Obviously, an issue for Texas because the Quinn Ewers goes down. You got Arch Manning playing against Washington. But for right now, I think Murphy's in the portal. Murphy's addition to the portal is the most intriguing guy right now in the portal because if he lands in the right place, he could be really, really special.
I wanted to ask a little bit about some games that'll actually be on the field this weekend. It's the start of bowl season on Saturday, and there are a ton of games coming up this weekend. I believe it's 6 of them at the FBS level, the FCS championship, or not FCS, pardon me, the HBCU bowl game as well. Howard and Florida A&M, the Celebration Bowl, that's going on this weekend too. What game in the early part here, the first week and a half or so of bowl season, intrigues you the most?
Yeah, I'm going Saturday. I'm tickled for 7:30 UCLA at Boise State, 7:30 Eastern. Boise State is a program under Andy Avalos that lacked any sort of spark, not just to mention offensive ingenuity. And they promoted Spencer Danielson eventually, but when he was the interim coach for that stretch to the end of the season, like they played like the Boise team that I like went and visited a ton from 2012 to 14 and 15. A group that was energetic, explosive, had a chip, and was aggressive. So I want to see them play UCLA, a UCLA team that's really kind of challenged offensively. I'm really looking forward to that game. I'm not going to say that the winner is a top 25 team next season, but you build a lot of momentum for Boise State. You win in UCLA's backyard in SoFi. For me, that's the game of the day on Saturday. Jacksonville State, Louisiana probably comes in second. Jacksonville State, if you haven't got a chance to watch them, they're running Rich Rod's offense, like the old Rich Rodriguez style that we got used to at West Virginia. They're a lot of fun to watch. So that's the 2:15 Eastern, and then Boise at night are the games for sure on Saturday.
Joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline is Paul Myerberg, who covers college football for USA Today. Joins us on Thursdays at this time to talk college football. You can find his work on Twitter at Paul Myerberg. Paul, I want to talk about a team that is one of the most compelling college football teams in the country, and next year there'll be a Big 12 team. I want to ask you about the Colorado Buffaloes. They finished their season 4-8, and I think the reason they were so compelling is because everybody's hot take about them got to take turns being right. Dion brought in Louis Luggage. He brought in these great players in the transfer portal. They won. They were exciting. The impact monetarily was worth it for Colorado. Then depth became a problem, and they got pushed around. They lost 7 of their last 8. They almost got Shedeur Sanders killed. Deion Sanders might not be a great game coach and builder of a staff, but now it's time for the tables to turn onto the recruiting side, and he's compiled what is right now the number 1 transfer class in the country again. What do you make of where things stand a year into the Deion experience at Colorado? And what represents the progress they need to make in year 2 for Deion, year 1 back in the Big 12?
Yeah, I will say my favorite part of the first year was when he had his introductory press conference, and I was reading a transcript of it, and I kept seeing him mention this guy Lewis, and I was like, "Who the hell is Lewis?" It's like, is there a guy named Lewis on Jackson State who he's bringing with him? Like, who's Lewis? I look up the roster. Turns out he met Louis. I'm not that smart. Look, the issue with Colorado is really, really simple. Schematically on offense, they're set. They've got a good QB. I do not buy into the idea that Shedeur Sanders is the top 5 pick. I mean, he could be a top 5 pick. I don't buy him as a franchise QB yet. I think maybe it would pay to see him, like you said, not get knocked down 150 times in a season to see what he can do. The issues are simple, and yeah, you're right on the nose. We all predicted this at some point or another heading into the season. Their line stinks on both sides, and their defense stinks. And what we know, because we've been through this with or without the portal for decades, like when a new coach comes in, the last thing that they get if you're building a program is great line play, and specifically great defensive line and offensive line play. I'm sorry, it's on defense, specifically great defensive line play. And they stink. They stink doing both of those things. So what we need to do is really recalibrate what it means to build a program in this era, what it takes to build a program in this era. And for Deion, that means don't talk to me about your transfer class. Talk to me about your traditional recruiting class. Talk to me about the pipeline of guys that you're developing on both sides of the ball. You cannot, we know it because we saw it. You cannot bring in a 5 or 7 offensive lineman class in the portal and expect that to work. It's not going to work. This is about rhythm. It's about routine and consistency. You can't just build that in a lab or on a practice field in 3 months. You got to build it over time. So you are noticing him kind of look at different sorts of linemen. You're seeing him recruit traditional linemen through the high school ranks. So I think that's a step forward. My take on it, guys, a year in, progress is progress. They have made progress. More importantly, they have become one of the centers of the college football world. You can make a lot off of that. But we need to take a step back and realize that what they did at 3-0 is not really representative of where they need to go. They're really far off. They're not going to go into the Big 12 next season and be a favorite. They're just not. Like, if they play Kansas State in November, they would have gotten their butt kicked. Like, we know that. So they've got a lot of ways to go. I think they're getting better. I think they will be better next year. They could be a 6-win team potentially. But they've got a long, long path ahead of them. And the question that I have that no one can really give me a good answer on is Dan going to see it through? If they're 5-7, 6-6 the next 2 years, is he going to see it through to 9-3? I think there's a lot of skepticism about that. And I know for a fact that there are coaches saying that Dan's not going to be around for 3 or 4 years. So he needs to prove it, and he needs to prove it on Saturdays, because their Saturday performance leaves a lot to be desired at this point.
Who's your favorite head coaching hire of this cycle so far?
Oh, great question. I'll give you 3. There's 3. Well, I'll give you 2. There's 2 that I love. One of them is Bronco Mendenhall at New Mexico. I've known Bronco for a long time, and beyond the fact that he's just a winner, that's all he does. He just wins. Like, he's not going to win you a national championship, but he's going to get you to bowl game after bowl game after bowl game. He's just such a great ambassador and representative of your program, of your athletic department. He's just like, he's worth his weight. So I love that hire. I think New Mexico is not as bad as they've been. I think they can recruit that area with Bronco and like that West Texas through the state into Colorado area and get undervalued guys and be good and be tough. That's number 1. Number 2 is Willie Fritz at Houston. I think Houston with Willie Fritz, if you give him 2 years, they're going to be a problem, because he has throughout his entire career, from Glenn through Southwest Missouri, through Tulane, through wherever he's been at every single stop, he has never, ever had a chance to work with this caliber of athlete. And you look at what he did at Tulane these last 2 years of 23 wins. I think if you give him time at Houston, which he'll get, that's just a no-brainer, no doubt. He's going to get them to 8 or 9 wins. It's just no doubt. His entire career, he's been doing this. So I'm really, really intrigued by that. Houston with Willie Fritz, I'll say it, December 14th, 2023. With him as the head coach, if you give him 5 or 6 years, they will be in the college football playoff, because he's that good a coach. And he has that, if he can recruit that city in that area, he'll have the talent to get it done.
Paul, I got to tell you a little story here. Young 18-year-old Jake coming out of Salina, Kansas, getting recruited. He goes on a trip to Warrensburg, Missouri, to go and visit the Mules of Central Missouri. Head coach Willie Fritz. He stares at me from his desk and says, "Jake, you want to be the hammer or you want to be the nail? You come to CMSU, as Central Missouri State at the time. You come to CMSU, son, you're going to be the hammer right here in Mule Country."
Awesome.
And I was like, "I'm on board, coach. I'm on board. I want to be the hammer." Did not go to Central Missouri State. Did not play. Played against Central Missouri State when I went to a different school. But I will remember he just leaned back, put his hands above his head, and goes, "Do you want to be the hammer or do you want to be the nail, son?" And I just thought it was hilarious.
But look, like, that's him, right? Like,
Yes.
you watch these kids at Tulane.
Yes.
These are a bunch of nerdy ass guys who are just hammering you and hammering you and hammering you.
Yeah.
So I love that story. I like, that is so Willie Fritz. That is so Willie Fritz. And look, at Houston, that's going to play. That's going to play at Houston. So I'm looking forward to this. That's a great story. Yeah, 5 or 6 years. Give them time. They'll be the hammer.
Well, we appreciate the time, Paul. Thank you so much, and we'll talk to you next week.
Okay, thanks, guys. Bye.
Paul Myerberg, USA Today.
I do love that story.
It's such a good story.
Think he still does that? Like, you think
I don't
he's
know.
walking into some
I don't
high
know.
4-stars living room and
I
kicks
don't
his
know.
feet up on the ottoman and
I
asks
don't know.
that?
I'll tell you this, guys. If we're going to, when I say we, if you guys are, if you're going to Vegas for Big 12 Media Days and Willie Fritz is there, you have to ask him. By the way, do you remember a young kid who was like 6'2", 150 pounds? You remember giving him the hammer and nail speech? Let me know what he said.
I'm going to give him your senior year picture and say, do you remember this guy?
Hey, this guy cooked you 2 straight years, just letting you know. Coming up next, we got more to get to here on 580 Sports Talk. 2 here on 580 Sports Talk. Thank you so much for joining us. Jake LeBon, and now just Dan Lucero. Just Dan.
Sorry if that's a disappointment to anybody.
Just Dan. Brendan had to bolt. He will be on the Washburn Coaches Show tonight from 6 to 7 at Skinny Sports Bar and Grill. So we got you the next few hours. We're going to hear from Rick Peterson coming up at the bottom of the hour. Talk a little high school hoops. We'll also hear from Matt Nagy and Steve Spagnuolo. Then Mitch Holthus, voice of the Kansas City Chiefs, will join us as he is gearing up to head to Foxborough and New England. Don't forget that game will be on our sister station, the big 94.5 Country, with an 11 o'clock pregame coverage, noon kickoff.
Yep, your preseason calendar pocket schedule invalid for this one. Game got moved from Monday to Sunday, so the entire country can watch my Seahawks get stomped into a mud hole by the Philadelphia Eagles on Monday night. Not thrilled.
Not thrilled. You taking the Eagles to cover?
I think they're only like 4-point favorites, which is preposterous.
Now the Eagles are beating up right now. They're not playing well. Is your boy Drew Lock going to start?
Sounded like he's trending towards Geno. Trending towards Geno Smith being available.
I will say, man, the NFL got it right this year because there are so many teams still in the mix for all the playoff spots. It really, really is. Like Seattle could turn around the next couple of weeks and they're in.
See, the flip side to that is that I would rather I like it when there are years where there are like clear favorites, where there are 2 or 3 teams that are ahead of the game. And this is a year it just feels like they kind of pulled everybody toward mediocrity a little bit. Like
the last 2 years in the AFC was Chiefs, Bengals, and the Bills. Like that was what it was, and then you kind of had the Ravens who were a little flirtatious, that type of thing.
Right. I think back to the year the Seahawks won the Super Bowl. Like I knew that was going to be the Seahawks and the Broncos like a month into the season. It was pretty obvious. Yeah. Those 2 teams were the best teams in football.
And it was cool because it was the best defense versus the best offense.
Right. And some years you get that. Some years you get the team like you get a team, even if it's just one team in a conference, it really separates itself. And it's obvious they're the lead dog and everybody's trying to run them down. And the Chiefs have been that team quite often here in the last half decade plus. But we don't have that this year. I would rather there be like 3 or 4 dominant teams than like 8 or 9 good ones.
But don't you think the playoffs this year will be more entertaining just because a 7 seed, like ready, if the Bills get in at the 7 seed, okay?
You don't want to be the 2 seed playing them.
And that could very well be
the Chiefs.
Yeah,
it could.
You don't want to see the Bills in the playoffs right now. No, sirree. No.
That's a very overqualified 7 seed, especially in contrast to what the 7 seed has been the last couple of years.
Remember the Pittsburgh Steelers 2 years ago?
Ben Roethlisberger dropping back and throwing like 8-yard milk jugs.
Do you remember they were leading the Chiefs 7-0?
Yeah, TJ Watt had the pick 6.
Yeah.
It made just an incredible play. And, maybe he'll win this game by... No.
And then it was 40-7. The Chiefs ended up winning. That was when the Chiefs offense was an absolute juggernaut. I miss those days. I do. We got lots to get to, so let us know your thoughts. Hit us up on our text line, 785-272-9429. Outside of Topeka, very easy to get a hold of us, 785-272-9429. Check us out on YouTube as well. Go to youtube.com, search 580 Sports Talk. So Brennan will be back, obviously, tomorrow, but he's gone. And he asked right before we left. He was like, hey, do you need anything? And I was like, yeah. You got any more of them sweet trivia stats that involve Julio Lugo?
Is there any way we could work in some other like sketchy 2000s baseball players? Do you have any Ugueth Urbina facts for us?
Yeah, you got any Ambrose Burgos stats for us? Brandon, I love you if you're listening, buddy. You're the best. I love you, buddy. I joke.
How about some Chad Curtis trivia?
I joke because I care, right? You know, the saying is, if I stop making fun of you, then we've got a problem, right?
We were playing Let's Remember Some Guys Who, like, this is unfair to the late Julio Lugo, who, to the best of my knowledge / Wikipedia searching, never actually did Fed time. Like, Ambiorix Burgos, Royal Great. Ugas Urbina, I think, is still in jail.
Yeah.
Esteban Loaiza did some time, moving some weight. Who else?
Who was the
Chad
other,
Curtis being a perv? He's still very in jail.
Who was the guy who changed his name? Leo Nunez. Remember when he changed his name? He was like, wait a minute, that's not Leo Nunez. Oh, gosh. So, yeah, we got a lot more to get to. But I want to talk about it, and we'll see, one, how surprised you are, Dan. And two, do you think it's sustainable? And what does this tell you about this Kansas City Chief team? All right. Since the bye week, all right, the bye week was after the Dolphins game.
Right.
So since the bye week, we've had 4-game sample size.
Yep.
That's a decent sample size. Almost previous, it was a quarter of the season, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, not quite. They played the Eagles, Raiders, Packers, Bills. Okay. The Kansas City Chiefs, in that span, ranking in the NFL, the Chiefs' run offense is ranked what number since the bye week, according to EPA?
I'm going to say they are ranked 9th.
9th. The Kansas City Chiefs run offense, ranked in the NFL, run offense against the Eagles, the Raiders, Packers, and the Bills. Those 4 weeks. The Chiefs run offense, according to EPA. Don't worry about EPA. It's just it's
expected points.
It's a stat that's, if you're ranked high, you're really good, right?
Think of it in terms of number of points.
Yeah. How good they are. Dan, they're ranked first.
How about that?
The Chiefs' run offense is ranked first. What's better than first, Dan? Nothing.
Correct.
First since the bye week. And if you look back at it, let's look back at those games, Dan. How did the Chiefs do running the football against the Eagles? Man, they ran it down their throat.
Yeah.
They looked good.
168 yards rushing.
Yep. How about the game against the Raiders?
I don't remember them running it great again, like voluminously against the Raiders.
Well, just to let you know, the Kansas City Chiefs rushing attack that game, not the best. This was the poorest one of their 70 yards on 23 carries. But then how'd they do against the Packers? They probably win the game if they actually ran it a little bit more.
Yeah, they ran it for 148 yards.
And what's funny about the game against the Bills, and, you know, if I got to eat a little bit of crow here, I will. Chiefs ran the football pretty decent against the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, they had 4.5 yards a carry.
4.5 yards carry, 1 touchdown, and had some decent runs for McKinnon and Tony, and Clyde had a few different decent
Clyde's
carries.
running hard. Like,
Yep.
Clyde looks, the word I used on Twitter was spry to describe him. He looks a little more like he's got a little bit more spring in his step than we're accustomed to seeing, because the workload hasn't been.
I was going to say, maybe.
Fresher legs,
yeah, that type of thing. But they are number 1 since the bye in running the football. So I've often asked, can Andy Reid change? Can Andy Reid run the football when he needs to? And the answer, honestly, over these last 4 games, what do you know? Yes. They're running it, and when they're running it, they're having success. And I think that is a fantastic situation that the Chiefs are in. Now, it's a little bit different. Honestly, I would not, I don't think he was going to anyways, but I would not play Isaiah Pacheco in this game against the Patriots. And I'll be very interested to see how the Kansas City Chiefs do running the football against the New England Patriots. You want to know why? Patriots run defense, very good. They're a good run defense. How are the Chiefs going to handle the running game in this situation? The offensive line, and we know that Morris is a better run blocker than he is a pass blocker, and that was evident in the game against the Bills. I will be fascinated to see how the Chiefs, and just how many times that they divvy this thing up, running and throwing the football over the next 4 games. But will they continue to run it? And it shouldn't be a surprise that, hey, guess what? On 3rd and 1, they're just handing the ball off and running it. not doing ridiculous, crazy stuff, that shoots out of the can or something like that. I think this is a good thing for the Kansas City Chiefs. And I do think, we talked about it before the game against the Bills, Dan, that, you know what? Look at the games that the Chiefs have had. Their drives have been pretty good. Their drives have improved, right? Hey, look at that. They're moving the football. They're just not scoring in the red zone. Well, they're moving the football. And I think a big reason why is because that run game is getting better. And it is effective. The reason the Kansas City Chiefs are not scoring is because they're turning the ball over. At minimum, 6 points in the game against the Bills, the Chiefs get 2 field goals, because once you cross the 50-yard line, you're in Harrison Butker's range.
Yeah.
And they were at the 50-yard line when Mahomes threw the interception. And it was that first down that he threw?
Yeah,
that
that was
on?
first down. Yeah.
First down. And that goes back to a little bit more of, hey, maybe we hand the ball off again a little bit more. But same thing. If Rashee Rice doesn't fumble it, that's another 3 points. This is where the Chiefs offense is starting to improve. And it just comes down to not messing up. Don't screw up. And I think a big reason of that is the running game with the Kansas City Chiefs. Will it continue against the New England Patriots? I don't know. And there's some part of me that I really hope that they continue to try. And I'm not one of those guys who, they're really, really good against the run. Don't ever run it. They're so good. Why should we even try, against that? You don't do that in the NFL. You still need to run the football, see what you can do. Whereas, for the longest time, Washburn against Northwest Missouri State in football. Northwest front 4 and front 7 has been the best, every year for the last 10 years. It was to the point where you honestly didn't even try to run it because you were just wasting it down. And if anything, over the majority of the game, they're going to have more tackles for loss than you're going to have rushing yards. Mm-hmm. I'm not joking about that, folks. There was a year when they allowed 30 yards rushing in a game. That was it. You didn't even try to run the ball. I'll be interested to see what the Chiefs do in this game because of New England's run defense.
So what's fascinating to me about the Chiefs being effective running the ball is the reason that I think they've been more effective running the ball coming out of the bye. They've simplified what they do on the ground. We're not seeing the jet sweep stuff. That's almost, when's the last time the Chiefs ran jet sweep? I think they ran one with Tony against the Packers.
Mecole Hardman, maybe?
But Hardman out, that was a play they ran for him. They run it for Tony sparingly, but they ran Tony twice against the Bills, and they just lined him up out of the backfield and ran in between the tackles. And you know what? He averaged 8 yards per carry on those 2 rushes. That was a pretty effective play because Kadarius Toney, for his myriad failings, which we have talked a great deal about this week, they've been in the spotlight. He's really fast and he's hard to bring down. He really is. Mm-hmm. So you get him the ball, which the Chiefs have sometimes been unable to do because of Tony's own, again, shortcomings. You put the ball in his hands, he's fast and he's hard to bring down.
Slippery.
And they don't need to be tricky with it because you talked about this at the beginning of the year. If we got such a great offensive line, if we got a top 10 offensive line, why can't we get a first down on 3rd and short? Why do we have to run to the boundary? Why are we running all this east-west stuff? I'm not trying to imitate you.
No.
But I'm trying to paraphrase.
But they're finally doing it.
Yes.
Hey, Creed, Trey Smith, Joe Tooney, which, by the way, you can see how big Joe Tooney is standing next to Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes is 6'3", 240.
Yeah.
And just a big dude, just mush him. Just saying, we're bigger than you.
3rd and 1 has become run between the tackles, and not a convoluted run. There might be a
trap block.
Yeah, they're a trap or something like that. But that's not that's 1930s football. There's nothing complicated about that. There's no razzle dazzle there. It is straightforward. We're going to win at the line of scrimmage, and our ball carrier is going to get 3 feet of real estate. And we're going to keep this drive going. They have simplified the running game, and it is working because the interior line is that good. And these ball carriers, specifically Pacheco, are that good. And I liked the wrinkle of giving Tony the ball out of the backfield.
Yeah, I do too.
He's a guy that can make a difference. I think he really can. I wouldn't be surprised to see him in that role more against New England if they need a bit of juice out of the backfield, if they struggle to get Edwards-Helaire and McKinnon going. So I think that's the most encouraging thing about the Chiefs running game. Not just that it has been successful, the why of it. Why it's been successful. And it's been successful because they've finally done the thing that we were all yelling at our TVs and screaming at them to do. Just get behind your studs. Don't make this hard. The football field is north to south. Get your guys north to south. Get Isaiah Pacheco north to south. And that has been really, really effective for them. And, you know, it's a well-worn football cliche that in January, when the wind starts to howl and the weather gets unpredictable, you like to be able to lean on your ground game. And the Chiefs over the years.
If you're a dome team, you don't really have to worry about
that. If you're in a dome, you don't worry about that. If you're a warm weather team, it's not a great concern. And in previous years, if you were the Chiefs, Mahomes in the passing game was just so good that you didn't have to worry too much
spin anything
about it. Yeah. And he can, but can the receivers, they can drop it in anything too.
Yeah.
So bring something that's going to be a little bit more reliable. And we talk about turnovers, shooting yourself in the foot. There's a lot less that can go wrong when you're putting the ball in somebody's gut than you are when you're trying to throw it to them.
Tony should carry it at least 3 times a game out of the backfield, at least.
Yeah. And it doesn't need to be the jet sweep stuff. Like get him off tackle.
Run a zone. Run a zone. Hand off to the right. Everybody just go that way. Find a body in your zone. The Patriots run defense. And this is just, old school, team rushing stats, right? That those don't mean anything more when you've got Vorp and Borp and whatever. New England, 88 yards per game allowed via the ground. That's 3rd best in the NFL. They're good. See what happens coming up on Sunday at noon on our sister station, the Big 94.5 Country. Coming up next, we got either or over under here on 580 WIBW. Alrighty, Dan, got a question for you.
All right.
Okay. You get to, this is either or over under. All right. We're going with an either or here. I got a two-parter, okay? One, you have to live on the East or the West Coast. Which one are you choosing?
The West Coast.
Okay. You get to live on the East Coast, but everything will be timed in the Mountain Time Zone, which means like you don't get the Eastern Time Zone, because that's what's the worst part about living on the East Coast is Eastern Time, because everything is so late at night. Okay.
Yeah.
It's terrible, right? Absolutely awful. My brother lives on the East, not in on East. He lives in Ohio.
He lives in Eastern Time.
Yeah. He tells me about that at least once a month. Like he's up watching something and it's 11:30 at night and it's in the second quarter. And that's just terrible.
No, that's real. That's yeah.
But you get the East Coast, but everything is in like Mountain Time. Like you get the better time zone, but on the East Coast.
Or I live on the West Coast in Pacific Time.
Yeah.
Man, the drag about Pacific Time is like the early stuff, like 10 a.m. kicking off college football or 9 a.m. kicking off college football is too early. Like that sucks. I don't love that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't love big noon Saturday being 9 a.m. I'm not myself a morning person. So I can't get properly charged up for a 9 a.m. kickoff.
I remember I was we went to a wedding in LA and the Chiefs were playing. And we're trying to find a Chiefs bar to watch it at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. The 10 a.m. start for the NFL.
Oh my goodness. I mean, the game was over at 1 o'clock. And I'm like, what am I gonna? I got a lot of stuff I can do now in LA.
For a long time, I believed that the Mountain Time Zone was the ideal time zone for sports watching. But I have come over time, the more I've lived in the Central Time Zone, to appreciate the balance between like Sunday Night Football ending at 10:30 is not too late for me.
No.
Like that's fine. I can watch the Sunday Night Football game, or second half of Big Monday tips off at 8. It's done at 10:30. Like that's fine. I am good with the big game being over at 10:30 as opposed to 9:30, because then I just go right to bed, and then that works for me.
Yep.
But my favorite teams play in the Mountain Time Zone. I tried to watch Avalanche last night.
Man, getting done at 11:30.
Yeah, like it was midnight by the time.
Yeah.
Midnight Central by the time the Avs are done. So for the sake of the teams I care the most about, I think I would prefer being in a situation where I had Mountain Time.
The answer for me is I can't deal with that late night stuff. Like I cannot do it. So I'd go with the if I could make it, because I think the East Coast has a lot more like things and can a lot more. Obviously, the population is so far balanced on the eastern side. But no, the answer is I'd rather get up at 10 o'clock and watch a football game at 10 o'clock or 9 o'clock than have to watch something until 1 in the morning. We got Joe Buck. We'll see you later today.
Yeah.
When he did that stuff.
Ah, man, what was the game? What year was it? Was that 18? Yeah, 18. 18, the Dodger Red Sox World Series, where they had an 18-inning game.
Yep. We'll see you later today.
Yeah, I think it was Muncy hit the walk-off home run off of Evaldi in the 18th, and it was like 3 in the morning. That game was still going.
Terrible.
They were out of commercial revenue on the local Fox affiliate here. They were just running ads for like, hey, watch Mom in syndication. Like, man, these
promos are from deep cuts.
I've seen 4 innings worth of these ads. This show ain't getting any more funny. I'll tell you that right now. All right. Here's a either or for you. You can have the Royals sign all-star right-handed starting pitcher Marcus Stroman, or the Royals sign former all-star right-hander Jack Flaherty and an additional bullpen arm.
So you were either going with the lower starting pitcher plus a bullpen arm, or give me Stroman. Just give me Stroman. I think, and there's a little,
little smoke
going on. If they do get Stroman, then you start with Stroman probably is your opening day starter. then you go Lugo, then you go Reagans, or maybe you go Reagans, then Lugo, and then you go Brady Singer. And then honestly, the hope there is it's Daniel Lynch.
And you can demote Jordan Lyles to swingman status.
But also it's not like, you're going to need 7 to 8 starters during the year.
Of course.
Because Daniel Lynch is going to get hurt. That's what he always does.
Yeah, like Seth Lugo didn't make 32 turns in the rotation last year. Like it's 162 games to be started. There are a lot of innings to be pitched, and nobody makes it through with just 5 guys. The idea, though, is to push Lyles as far down on that depth chart as possible.
If they get Stroman, and it's Stroman, Reagans, Lugo, Singer, and Singer pitches not even to his ability in 22, just in between 22 and 23. His ERA is 3.9. You know what I mean?
Or low 4s. You take low 4s.
What did Singer have?
Last year it was 5.5.
No, I got to type in Brady, not just Singer.
Bill Singer from the 60s and 70s, former Cub, the Singer throwing machine.
In 2022, I mean, his ERA was 3.2. Like, if he's that, and then you've got Stroman and Lugo and Reagans, and if Daniel Lynch, because Daniel Lynch does have better stuff, it's just he gets shelled harder for the majority of the time than Daniel Lynch.
Honestly, that is on paper, provided the Guardians trade Shane Bieber, which there are a lot of things pointing to them doing that. You could argue me into that being one of the best starting rotations in the American League Central.
Last year Singer's ERA was 5.52. Now,
that's how low the bar for entry is in the American League Central. You sign Marcus Stroman, and it's there. Like, they are as good as any team in that division, 1 through 5.
And that's if Singer does improve. And I over my time, I've come to realize that bullpens don't mean anything unless you're in contention. It does not matter. Like, when the Royals had Joaquin Soria back when he was really good, and he's walking out to Welcome to the Jungle, and all that kind of stuff. And everybody's like, oh, we need to trade Joaquin Soria. Well, who's going to close? Close what? The 69 games you're going to win?
Exactly.
The 70 games you're going to win?
No,
Who cares?
You're right. You're 100% right.
The only reason you need and if you don't think bullpens are important, look at the 2016 Royals. If the 2016 Royals didn't trade Wade Davis, 2017 Royals. If the 2017 Royals didn't trade Wade Davis, they make the playoffs that year because they had no one there in the bullpen. They had so many issues there, but they traded Davis. They tried to do the whole, we're going to rebuild and win at the same time.
Trade him a year early. Jorge Soler was productive. Like, eventually.
But if you need a legit guy if you are trying to win. Ask the Detroit Tigers. How many World Series appearances would the Tigers have had if they had a decent bullpen back when they were really
back
good?
When they had like 4 future Cy Young guys on their rotation?
I mean, right? Because you had Scherzer, and you had
one year they had Price, Verlander,
and Scherzer, I think
Porcello, who ended up winning a Cy Young.
But they didn't have a bullpen.
Yeah.
They did not, and they got destroyed. So the bullpen does not matter for me right now unless you're going to be competitive. And hey, if you're competitive, you can always go get bullpen help during the year.
One last quick over under for you. Thursday Night Football tonight. Chargers, Raiders, McConnell, Stick. It's Thursday Night Football on Amazon Prime. Keenan Allen, not going to play. Josh Jacobs also ruled out for tonight's game. So each team is without their starting quarterback from the beginning of the year and their best offensive player. Over under 5 minutes you'll be watching this game tonight.
I'll say over 5 minutes because is there anything else going on? Like, no, there really isn't. Like, well,
it's not a big college basketball week because it's finals week.
No.
It is. I mean, there's usually a Thursday night NBA doubleheader on TNT.
Yeah, and you know me, I'm not an NBA guy.
Yeah.
No.
No, there's no. Well, yeah, the TNT kind of seeds Thursday nights to the NFL this time of year. But Warriors Clippers on NBA TV.
I might watch it. Maybe, I don't know. It all depends on the wife has planned.
Sure.
Kids go down and
Listen, I feel you.
yes, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's not high on the priority list.
It's an under for me. No chance.
Let's put
No
that.
thanks.
Coming up next, we're going to talk all things high school sports with our Lewis Toyota High School Whip Around with Rick Peterson.
Joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline is Rick Peterson from TopSports.news. This is the High School Whip Around presented by Lewis Toyota. We do it every Thursday at this time. Rick Peterson joins us to give his insight on all things Shawnee County high school sports. You can follow him on Twitter at Peterson_Rick. And of course, check out the work of him and his staff at TopSports.news. Pistol, we're coming up on the winter break. Goodness knows I know teachers are ready for it and students are ready for it. How ready is the high school press for a little winter break?
Well, I'm ready for it because at some point I got to start my Christmas shopping. But yeah, I'm ready for a couple weeks.
So before we get there, though, there's another week of basketball. There are games tomorrow night, and we'll tell you about our Lewis Toyota High School basketball game of the week here in just a little bit. But as we round out this fall semester and this first part of the season, which city basketball teams have been the most impressive to you so far?
Well, on the girls' side, Seaman, of course. Seaman's playing very well. Went up and took a very good win against St. James Academy, which had beaten them double digits state tournament last year. So they're playing very well. Hayden's playing very well. Hayden's undefeated as well. Washburn Rural's going to be fine. They got Zoe Canfield back now, and they had a big win at Shawnee Mission Northwest on Tuesday. So on the girls' side, those are, and out in the county, both Silver Lake and Rossville are very, very good, ranked number 1 and number 4 in 3A right now. So girls' side is very good. Boys' side, I think it's a little more even. I got a game tonight that I'm really interested to see. 3-1 Topeka West versus 4-0 Junction City. I think that'll tell me a little more about West. And then, the others just seem to be pretty even. I think Shawnee Heights, lost 2 early. They're playing well now. Hayden, under Trey Brown, got off to a 2-1 start in the Paul Terry Classic. Seaman got a huge win the other night over a Piper team, which had beaten Shawnee Heights. So I think no team really sticks out to me other than Highland Park, which we've yet to see in town. But they've had a couple of routes to start the league. But other than that, I think it's pretty. I think Highland Park's at the top, and then I think it's very even after that.
Let's talk to you about some teams that we have seen and will see here in the coming days on our coverage here on 580 WIBW. Tuesday night on our Lewis Toyota Tuesday Night Hoops, we were out at the Dungeon to see a couple of games. Ended up being pretty one-sided affairs, unfortunately, for the hosts, as the Topeka High girls and boys both lost to Manhattan. The Topeka High girls are playing a 7-8 player rotation right now, and they are all either freshmen or sophomores. That's got to be one of the youngest teams you've seen around here, and I know that that's a challenge that maybe wasn't quite expected to this point by the second-year head coach Brittany Redmond, but when she talks about her team, I think she's really positive about the potential for some of these freshmen and sophomores, but it's tough to compete at that age at the varsity level.
Yeah, and she's got to stay positive, and she's got to stay enthusiastic, and I think she is, and I think she will, and I think by February she'll see some of those young kids come around. Like you said, with their schedule, it makes that task difficult. Manhattan's always good. They're going to play 2 against Washburn Rural. They're going to play 2 against Hayden, which is ranked number 2 in 3A. So it might be slow going, but as long as they're making steady progress, I think Brett will be happy with them.
Topeka High boys, also a young team, and they've been hit by injuries a little bit, but they're 2-3 on the year after that loss to Manhattan. And for a team that only won 3 games all of last season, that's representative of some progress. And I think when they get Isaiah Lyons healthy eventually here, Pistol, that's going to be a team that is much tougher to reckon with in Gio Lyons' second season.
Yes, I agree, and I think if they can, I think they have Bonner Springs tomorrow night, and if they can get that one and go into the break with a win, and particularly, that would match her victory total for all of last season if they could get a win over Bonner, and I think that's definitely a winnable game. I think they would feel good about themselves, and like you said, get healthy and make some progress. But yeah, they're going to have nights where they're probably going to struggle shooting the ball because they do have to rely quite a bit on the outside shot. But they're going to have other nights where I think they're going to be able to beat about anybody.
This is the Lewis Toyota High School Whip Around on 580 Sports Talk with Rick Peterson of TopSports.News. Joins us every Thursday at this time to cover prep sports happenings in Shawnee County. And you can follow him on Twitter at Peterson_Rick. Let's look ahead to our Friday night games on these airwaves, Pistol. The Lewis Toyota High School Basketball Games of the Week featuring Shawnee Heights at home. They're taking on Leavenworth in United Kansas Conference action. Shawnee Heights girls are 3-1. They've won 3 straight after an opening loss to Piper, 1 at the buzzer against Baser Linwood on Tuesday night. And in contrast to some teams in recent years for Bob Wells, these Lady T-Birds can really score the basketball.
Yeah, and they have several girls that can. And that's the thing. You don't want to rely on just 1 or 2 players, and I don't think they are. It seems to be kind of sharing the wealth, so to speak. They have one of the best freshmen in the county in KK Emmett, and she had 18 the other night. She's a star in the making, and they have some older girls that are kind of doing what they need to do to make them a complete team. They pulled one out the other night, which is very big for them. And, if I think they have another winnable game tomorrow night. And if they can go into the break with 4-1 record, I think they'll feel very good about themselves.
As for the Shawnee Heights boys, when I talked to Ken Darding last week before we had their games against Topeka West out there in Tecumseh, he pointed out that he's got a very young roster, that of the 12 he's dressing and rotating through on a nightly basis, 7 of them are underclassmen. So if you've got a young team, one thing that always helps is when you can lean on the older guys. And boy, Shawnee Heights has done that in their last 2 games. Jarrett Sanchez and Brennan Dodge are playing really high-level basketball. How far can those two carry a team that is kind of young around them?
Well, they're going to have to, particularly on the offensive end. And, Kenny's hoping that as they go on in the season, they'll develop more offense. But right now they're struggling offensively, except for those two. Those two had 39 the other night in the win at Baser Linwood. And they carried them last week against West. So they're going to have to develop more offensive weapons because, as the season goes on, teams are going to find ways to try to limit Sanchez and Dodge. But I think they will. Kenny really likes some of those young kids. It's just kind of like you talked about with the high girls. It takes a while for them to acclimate to playing at such a high level of high school basketball.
Rick Peterson of TopSports.News joining us for the Lewis Toyota High School Whip Around here on 580 Sports Talk. Again, those are our Friday night Lewis Toyota High School basketball games of the week. Shawnee Heights hosting Leavenworth. You'll be able to hear them right here on 580 WIBW. Pre-game coverage starting at around 5:30 tomorrow night ahead of the girls contest out at the gym we affectionately call the Birdcage at Shawnee Heights in Tecumseh. We also have a Tuesday night game next week, and it's a county matchup, and I want to get your thoughts because you did mention these two teams, both off to great starts. War on 24 basketball edition next Tuesday night. Silver Lake and Rossville meeting in Silver Lake. And those two girls teams have some of the best talent in the county. How do you handicap that matchup? What stands out about the way those two teams will match up when they take the hardwood next Tuesday?
Well, I think Silver Lake's got a little more experience, but Rossville's got a real good balance as well. I don't know. I think I maybe would give a Silver Lake a slight edge being at home, but nothing would surprise me in that rivalry. And for Rossville, you got Emma Mitchell and Riley Dix really off to a good start, and they got some other good scores. They could really score the basketball. And then Silver Lake's just these are a bunch of three, and maybe even in some cases 4-year starters, and so they've been to state multiple times. They were 4th last year after 3rd the year before. So they got it. Yeah, it's a heck of a game. I mean, it's a heck of a matchup. And then and the boys teams, I think both the Silver Lake and Rossville boys teams are making strides. So it should be a good Tuesday night of basketball.
That'll be Lewis Toyota Tuesday night hoops next Tuesday night from Silver Lake. We're excited to bring you those games to round out the first semester of basketball here on 580 WIBW. All right, let's shift our focus, Pistol, to some other winter sports. Wrestling in full swing, and I want to nod to the girls wrestling first because Washburn Rural just had a huge tournament victory, one of the toughest tournaments in this part of the country, and they went and they won it with a team that maybe doesn't have the headlining names of the past couple of years for Coach Damon Parker, but tremendous amount of depth, and those Junior Blues are going to be ones to be reckoned with in girls wrestling again.
Yeah, of course they will. And that was a huge win for them because some of those girls probably hadn't been in that position before because they had to kind of wait their turn to move in to some of those positions you talked about. But they and also that's a huge win for them because Rural's been fighting some injuries. So I think Damon Parker's his teams every year of girls wrestling that's happened, his team has been right there. What is that? 3 first and a second. So until somebody proves otherwise, they got to be the team to beat.
That was the Council Bluffs Wrestling Classic. I had to find the name of the tournament in Council Bluffs, Iowa, last weekend that they won last weekend. Any other wrestling performances, either individual or team, that have really stood out to you here in the early going?
Well, there's several individuals that I think have state caliber chances. Easton Broxterman, the defending state champion. Landon Coacher Munoz is a state returning champion. You got several individuals. I think I think teams like Rural and Seaman and Shawnee Heights are all going to be state caliber type teams by February. They're all kind of finding their way right now. But it as always, I think by the time we get to state, there'll be 5 or 6 individual title contenders and some trophy contenders for top 3 team finishes.
Haven't been able to get around to much swimming, the other winter sport that is ongoing, boys swimming. Early season results from there that have maybe jumped off the page for you?
Not jumped off the page, but Rural has a new coach who is very familiar to local swim fans, Jansen Garman. He was on the Seaman team, helped the Seaman team to win the state championship, the only city team ever to win a boys championship. And now he's a new coach here. And right away, I saw them the very first meet out, and they look like they're going to have some good depth. They got some young kids that are stepping in right away to prominent roles. So I think they're the team to beat in boys swimming right now again.
Rick Peterson covers Shawnee County High School athletics and Washburn University athletics over at topsports.news. Their coverage is growing, and it is essential if you want to stay informed with your finger on the pulse of what is happening in local high school and collegiate athletics. Again, topsports.news. You can follow Rick on Twitter at Peterson_Rick, and he joins us every Thursday on this program for the Lewis Toyota High School Whip Around. Pistol, it's always a pleasure. Where are you going to be Friday night?
I'll wave at you. Okay. I'll be on the other side, but I'll wave at you. I'll be at Shawnee Heights.
That sounds good. We will see you there, Pistol. Thanks so much for the time today.
All right. Bye-bye.
That is Rick Peterson. Again, a reminder that our Lewis Toyota High School basketball game of the week tomorrow night will be the doubleheader at Shawnee Heights between the T-Birds and the Pioneers of Leavenworth. Pregame coverage starting 20 minutes prior to the girls' game. Approximately 5:30 will be on the air with our pregame show. Myself and Larry Latimer will be on the call. Then next Tuesday night, we'll have one last game before the end of the calendar year. Some Lewis Toyota Tuesday night hoops for you, and it will be the basketball edition of the War on 24 from Silver Lake High School as the Eagles and Lady Eagles welcome in Rossville. We're excited to bring you that double dip next Tuesday evening following 580 Sports Talk. That's going to do it for this hour of the program. Coming up the 4 o'clock hour, Jake's going to rejoin me. We're going to talk a little bit about the Chiefs defense and their slow starts of late. Is that emblematic of a worrying trend, or is that something that the Chiefs defense can get right? Have they already peaked, or is their best football yet to come? We've also got What Is Wrong With You coming up, and we'll hear from Matt Nagy and Steve Spagnuolo. That's all coming up in the 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk.
Sports Talk, hour number 3. Welcome in. Thank you for stopping by. Jake LeBond, Dan Lucero with you on this Thursday. Brendan Dworzinski off for the time being. He'll be back tomorrow. He's got the Washburn Coaching Show coming up from 6 to 7. We'll be all back tomorrow for Friday. We got plenty to get to tomorrow. We'll talk with Zach Cox of NESN on all things not Boston, New England, the Patriots.
They were the Boston Patriots once.
When I think NES from Boston media,
He might rather talk Red Sox.
yeah,
They're pretty
yeah.
they're pretty embarrassing right now.
Yeah,
They're out there getting outbid by the Royals for starting pitchers.
So we might get into some Red Sox. We will talk with Matt Derrick. We'll talk a little Hoosiers. As KU taking on the Indiana Hoosiers, K-State in action taking on the Nebraska Cornhuskers coming up on Saturday. So we got lots to get to, or Sunday. Yeah, they're not happy about that, by the way, because they chose to play on Sunday because the Chiefs were playing on Monday, and then the Monday gets flexed, and that's a bummer.
I asked Tim Fitzgerald about that yesterday on our Wildcat wrap-up, and he says, the Chiefs aren't that fun to watch right now, so I don't think it's going to keep too many people away from Bramlage Coliseum who really want to be there.
Yeah, go see Cam Carter light it up. But hit us up on our text line, 785-272-9429. Let us know. Hit us up as well on our YouTube stream in our comments section. Go to youtube.com. Type in 580 Sports Talk. It's simple. It is easy. Little injury update. Isaiah Pacheco did not practice today. Donovan Smith did not practice today. Leo Chanel practiced. Mike Edwards did not. Second day in a row, Mike Edwards did not practice due to an illness. Bolton, limited participant, but I'm going to go ahead and say that he's going to play coming up on Sunday for the Kansas City Chiefs, as long as his wrist is not like super sore. When it comes to that, he does hit hard, man. There are times, when you're watching a game, I just say to myself, man, this is where I do believe every single person who watches the NFL needs to be able to watch a game on the first row or like on a sideline. That's why I think camp is kind of fun, but they don't, especially when they go full pad. But even then, camp full pad is not like week 7 NFL. They hit just so hard. That's where you got the old guy, like 48 years old or 55 years old. Oh, you're not doing it that much. Back when I used to play. Like someone always, the question is, do you think you could gain 5 yards in a game, in an NFL game, if you were a running back?
Absolutely not.
You're not, because you're only getting 1 snap. You're going to get 1 snap. And the only way you get 2 snaps is if you're really lucky and they ankle tackle you. Because if Nick Bolton hits you square and you're running, you are not getting a second snap.
Nah, you know what? If you get me in the Oklahoma drill with Nick Bolton, there's only going to be 3 hits. Me pulling out a phone and dialing 9 and hitting 1 and hitting 1 again.
Yeah. I know people remember the good old days, but I mean, even when I played at the Division II level, you could tell, like when Trey Lewis, who played in the NFL for 5 years, when Trey hit you, it was different. It was different. It really, really was. And that's why seeing, like, I remember one of the plays in the Buffalo Bills game where Bolton came down the line and I'm just like, man, and he's got, and no regard for his wrist whatsoever. Like if he was wondering, oh man, how's my wrist going to feel if it gets hit? Man, he didn't care. If I need to gnaw off my wrist, I'll do it. That's the, you ain't running like a toss sweep or running to the B gap. And no,
I am scurrying out of bounds.
No.
And I'm not making it out of bounds. I'm not fast enough. There's no chance. I just go down. I give myself up like Brett Favre did for the record-setting sack by Michael Strahan. Just curl up into a nice little ball.
And you don't realize how fast it is until you're down on the sidelines. Oh, my God. It's ridiculous. It really, really is.
That's an even more ridiculous hypothetical. People ask, if you faced a Major League Baseball pitcher, 100 at-bats, how many hits are you getting? It's like
You're getting 0.
If you didn't play high-level college baseball, you're getting 0 hits.
You're getting 0.
Like, yeah, I don't care if you're third in your beer league and slugging percentage. Like, nah, man, you're not touching it.
Like, I wonder if you got 100 at bats against Garrett Cole. Okay. And this is now Garrett Cole, even not,
Well, this is prime. I mean, you just want to Cy Young.
No,
this is
I'm
prime
talking
Garrett
about
Cole.
Garrett Cole, who used Spider Tack Garrett Cole. Okay.
All right.
Who's even better. I don't even think you're not even getting it in play. I don't think if you got 100 at bats, you swinging the bat, hitting the ball in play, I don't know if you do it.
And even if you do, you're not hitting it with any authority.
Yeah, you're not going to get a hit.
No.
We're talking not
like
hit.
you are swinging. You are going to be swinging very defensively as soon as you see what that ball does when it gets up on you at 98.
Well, it's not even that. He throws one curveball at you. You're diving out of the way. All he has to do, if you stepped in the batter's box with Garrett Cole and you're a right-hander and he throws that right-handed hook, all he'd have to do is throw that curveball. I mean, he'd have to throw it 3 times because you're strike out. But you're not. You're going to get out of the way. You don't have the stones to stay in there and think. Now, could you get on base? We've had this discussion before where it's like, okay, if I got 100 at bats, how many times am I going to get on base? Well, they might hit you.
Yeah.
That you might walk. Right? If you just take it, maybe he loses the strike zone a little bit, but if you actually trying to hit the baseball, you're not getting a hit. You're not getting on base that way. No way. No chance.
You're probably not fast enough to like square for a bunt and beat it out. Like that's not happening. The infield will play in.
Yeah, they don't even, it'll be like Satchel Paige back in the day. Everybody come on in.
Right. Like
we don't need that.
Like if you played, I even say if you played like, if you were a regular player for your college baseball team, and I'll say JUCO or NAIA too. Like if you were a regular everyday player for your college baseball team, you could probably find your way to a couple of hits.
Yeah,
a couple of fair balls.
Because you've probably faced at least somebody who's pumped it up 90.
Yeah, you're narrowing the skill gap sufficiently where that could happen. But like me,
right now, 39-year-old Jake is not getting it. Is not hitting that. No.
They didn't let me bat in high school, man. They DH'd for me in high school.
Yeah. And the same thing, like I always love the fact that it's out there that Brian Scalabrine did what he did to the people of Boston who just made fun of him left and right. And he had the saying that I'm closer to LeBron than you are to me.
Yes.
And he would play just rando dudes one day in the gym, and he would beat them 11-0.
All of those dudes who you have seen ever put on a professional uniform, that is the 1%.
If not lower.
The 0.1%.
Yeah. Like, he was playing guys who felt like they were really good, and he'd block every one of their shots, and he'd score on them, and it wouldn't even be close.
There is a 0.1% of that 0.1%. Those are your LeBrons and your Garrett Coles. But, people got to be realistic. Anybody like
you ain't getting a hit. You ain't tackling. You ain't getting a yard. You ain't. And that's where someone's like, well, I could catch one pass in the NFL for 5 yards. No, you wouldn't. You ready for this? If LeJerry Sneed lined up against you right now, right? The people are like, well, I'd get open. I'd just run a hitch route. It's like, no, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't, because they're going to play press man and you ain't getting off that.
No.
You are not getting off that. Well, they'll play zone. No, they wouldn't. They would literally, you can play two.
You are going to be begging for illegal contact. You are begging for a flag.
No, there's no illegal contact because he would just grab you at the line of scrimmage and you're not going anywhere. That's legal, okay? Like, that's what all these people are like, I think I could catch 10 yards in a game. I just run a 5-yard hitch route, catch it, and fall down. No, you wouldn't, because you wouldn't be open. Here's the thing. They're going to line up, and then, of course, there's all these extenuating circumstances where they're like, well, they won't know that I can't do it. They won't know that. And I'm like, trust me, if I saw you line up, they'll run man on this side because, you can run different coverages on both sides. You can run a zone coverage on one side of the field. You can run a man coverage on the other.
Yeah.
They look across there and they say they see you or Brendan, and they're going to say, man up on this side. We'll switch it. We'll run robber over here. We'll run cover 0 over here. Don't need any safety help. And LeJerry Sneed or Trent McDuffie would just grab you and you're not moving. So no, you're not going to catch 10 yards and say, well, I'd catch that pass.
It's just me in a quivering heap on the hash mark while L'Jarius Sneed does the seatbelt thing. What do you? I would at least take that as a form of respect. I would think it would be more disrespectful if they didn't do the seatbelt thing, if they locked me up.
Unless you're,
I got good hands though.
Yeah, I have no doubt there.
Yeah.
The gloves that they've got nowadays.
Like, hey, yeah, if I were playing catch with an NFL quarterback, I could catch some of them. Sure.
The accuracy of, so this was when I did my very, very small short stint in Arena Football League up in Columbus, Ohio. Okay.
Uh-huh.
I'm in there in Columbus, Ohio. Do you know who the Arena League quarterback of, because I was on the practice squad of they actually had practice squads for an Arena League teams. It was kind of wild. So you practice, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then you had the game on Saturday, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know who the quarterback of the Columbus Destroyers was back in 2008?
I know this because you've told me, but our listeners might not, so I'm going to let you reveal.
Matt Nagy.
Yeah.
The current OC, he threw me passes. And I remember, my college quarterback was a good college quarterback. Honorable mention, MIAA, had a fantastic arm, strong arm, accurate to the point where he was a Division II quarterback accurate, right? Really good player. And I get there to the Columbus Destroyers, and I run a dig route. And I turn, and I put my, get ready, and Matt Nagy, former Division I quarterback, played for Delaware.
Right.
Good quarterback.
Yeah.
Played in the Arena League for a long time. He had a good career in the Arena League. He was so damn accurate. When I tell you, I turned and was ready for the ball, left foot plant, turn in towards it. I'm lined up on the left, and he throws it, and it's right in my chest, immediately between my breastplates of my, and I'm just oh my God. This is way different. And for those 3 weeks, he was a metronome. It was 1, 2, 3, turn, boom. I mean, it
on you,
so accurate. And that was an arena quarterback,
right?
Who was a journeyman.
So that's not one of the. Let me do the quick math here. That's not one of the 96 best quarterbacks in the world because those guys are all on NFL rosters, right?
That's what just goes to show. Do you remember the pass play in the game against the Bills where Patrick Mahomes threw it across the middle and he threw it kind of up and high to Richie James?
Yes.
Okay. And everybody's
an outrageous throw, by the way.
And the comments. Somebody said, because this was an NFL guy, said it's incredible how accurate Mahomes is because he threw that so that Richie James wouldn't get killed. Because if he let him, it would have led him right into the safety. Instead, he threw it a little bit behind. Richie James hit his hands, tough catch, maybe should have caught it. But someone's like, he didn't mean to throw it like that. He didn't mean to put it a little bit behind him. So, that's just no, he 1,000% did. 1,000% did. I cannot stress to you enough how accurate these dudes are. Have you ever seen the video of Tom Brady when someone said, throw me the ball? And they're like, where do you want it? And someone said, to the left side. And he goes, more specific. To the point where he said, I'll throw it to your left nipple. And he threw it immediately to his left nipple. That's what I'm talking about, how good these guys are. It's kind of the PGA Tour, damn, these guys are good.
Yeah.
If Matt Nagy, who, it's kind of wild that, he's like, hey, you run this route. Hey, you run that route. And now I'm like, that guy was the head coach of the Bears, and now he's offensive coordinator for the Chiefs and all that. I wonder if you remember, hey, Matt, in the next press conference, do you remember when you were throwing me passes back in Columbus? He'd probably say no. But, that's how accurate he was, and he couldn't even sniff the NFL.
Yeah.
Not even a sniff. This is incredible. It really, really is. that just kind of turned out everywhere because when I look at Nick Bolton and I see he's not practicing today, and yet he just came off an injury, and that dude did not care one bit if his wrist hurt. They are built there. Do you think Mike Edwards, real quick, okay, last thing we get here. Do you think Mike Edwards will play? Because he's sick for the install days here on Wednesday and Thursday.
If he doesn't go through anything tomorrow, he won't. The Chiefs are pretty rigid generally. If you don't practice, you don't play. So for all those guys who are DNPs, if they don't make it back by Friday, then there's no chance. Like, they can be listed as questionable or whatever, but I would be surprised if they were.
Yeah, and I think Shamari Connor playing in that spot is okay. The problem is if somebody gets hurt.
That interception was a big-time play that he made. Like, he covered a lot of ground and made a very reactive play to intercept Josh Allen.
Dave Tobe last week said, yo, Shamari Connor's going to be good. And that's the only reason. Shamari Connor is the only reason why I say they might not sign L'Jarius Sneed.
When they drafted him, that's how I felt. Because there were, he was going into this last year before free agency, and Connor felt like a player with a similar skill set, like a similar type of prospect coming out of college. And Sneed has played his way into some big money this year.
To me, the final thing here on the cornerback spot, the Chiefs will not re-sign L'Jarius Sneed if they feel strongly about the rehab of Nagy Johnson and how do they feel about Nick Jones. Because they've got Nagy Johnson, who would have started ahead of Jalen Watson, and Williams.
Yeah.
Prior to camp.
Yeah. Can he come back off the ACL and be the same guy?
What do they think of Nick Jones, who they drafted in the 7th round? And those are going to be the two things. Coming up next, we got What Is Wrong With You? And then we'll hear from the coordinators here on 580 Sports Talk.
What is wrong with you time on this Thursday edition of 580 Sports Talk? And as always, What is Wrong with You is sponsored by Top City Metal Supply. Top City Metal cuts the metal you need to your specifications, saving time, money, and material. Never settle when it comes to metal. Top City Metal Supply on South Topeka Boulevard, halfway between Frito-Lay and Forbes Field. Our champion, Jake, was your story yesterday, our current weekly champion, the woman who stole a car and then drew a fake license plate for it that didn't resemble any other kind of license plate, and also she wrote expired tags. She put fake expired tags on her fake license plate on her stolen car.
I thought about this yesterday, and like some really like artsy people, right? Who are like really, really good at that.
Yeah, good at art. Yeah.
That's one thing that I'm like super jealous of. Like if there's anything, it's like people who can draw really well or can do like art stuff really well. And I asked one of my really good art people, could you make it close enough that you think you could get by? And they said, Jake, I think I could. And here's the reason why. He goes, they would get really, because like the other thing too about that story is that it was a paper. You can't do paper. You'd have to get like something hard, like, you know what I mean? Like to make it work. So he thinks he could. He thinks he could.
Interesting. Yeah, like all you have to do is like really spend the time on it.
Yeah.
And you could maybe make it past muster for a few miles. But also you have a stolen car. Like it was just compounding your situation.
Yeah. It's like when you're driving around with, hot goods in the back. You don't drive past, you don't speed.
Right. You go 75 miles per hour, maybe 76.
Yeah.
So you don't look too suspicious.
Yeah, exactly.
If you got like work in the backseat. I don't mean like work, I mean work.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I'm going to go first today.
All right, what do we got?
We're going to the JFK airport in New York, where a mobility impaired woman is speaking out about an incident that she said left her feeling threatened and harmed. Zian Horn, Xian, is that first name. That's a new one on me, so I think it's Zian. Zian Horn spoke to Pix 11 News, WPIX in New York. She uses converted ski poles as her walking aids. She is unable to walk on her own without assistance, so she uses ski poles that have been converted instead of using crutches or a walker. She says she's flown hundreds of times with no problem. However, back in November at JFK, Horn told Pix 11 a TSA agent told her she couldn't bring the ski poles on the plane with her because they were sports equipment and they needed to be checked. Horn tried to explain to the agent that it was her assistive device and legally couldn't be separated from her, telling Pix 11, "My poles are my arms and legs. It was a very terrifying thought to be separated from them. Someone would have to carry me onto the plane." Horn told Pix 11 News the TSA agent yelled at her, "No, you made them this way. You did this." Horn said at this point, because she was being so aggressive, she said, "I'd like to see a supervisor," to which point the TSA agent replied, "I am the supervisor." After half an hour, Horn said the agent told her another agent was allowing her to take the walking poles on her flight. The U.S. Department of Transportation website defines an assistive device as any piece of equipment that assists a passenger with a disability in coping with the effects of his or her disability. It includes, but is not limited to, crutches, canes, walkers, braces, and prosthetics. Neil Romano is a former chairman of the National Council on Disability. He also spoke with Pix 11 News, and he summed it up better than I could. Quote, "You've got to have a little bit of common sense."
That person definitely wasn't the manager also, by the way.
No. No, they just didn't want the smoke. Thought that they could divert it by saying, "No, I am in charge. And I'm telling you, you can't take that sports equipment on the plane." Like,
first of all, sports equipment, come on now.
Have a little feel. We talk about that in sports, right? Like, have some feel. Have some feel for the situation. This woman is not bringing these ski poles. She's not trying to sneak them in. They're not emotional support ski poles. Like, she can't move. She cannot walk without these.
By the way, kudos for her to rig it that way.
Find something that works for her.
That's a good
absolutely.
effort.
No, that's boss stuff. And
that's a good effort.
Yeah, I feel terrible that happened to her. But yeah, we got a TSA agent feeling themselves a little bit. Sometimes you think you have a little more power than you actually do, and you forget to have feel, and you forget to have common sense.
Yeah, that's bad.
And that's what we have here in this story at the JFK airport.
Alrighty, Dan, we are going to a place that I want to visit at some point in time, or would like to. I've heard a lot of nice things about it. We're going to Copenhagen, Denmark.
Copenhagen.
We are going across the pond. Alrighty. I don't know if you know, but it's cold over there right now in Copenhagen. It can get a little cold out there, but how about this? File this under don't do this here in the States. A toaster, yes, a toaster, was placed under an electric vehicle by its owner to warm up its battery. It likely caused a fire that destroyed the car and damaged a nearby house in southern Denmark. Police say that they, quote, strongly discourage, end quote, people to use this method of heat power cells. The cause of the fire is most likely to be found in the toaster that the owner of the car had placed under the front of his car to keep the battery warm. The fire happened Saturday in Steinel, about 60 kilometers away. The car was parked in a carport, a shelter for the vehicles that is attached to the house and consists of a flat roof. And the make of the car wasn't unknown. The car owner faces a fine.
So, first question, how do they keep the toaster like running all night?
I don't know if there's like a plug-in, like an extension cord,
or like you just like push the plunger down. Like, you know, when you think about a toaster,
yeah,
you put the bread in, you push the little lever down, and then once the toast is done to your liking, it pops it back up.
Yeah.
But then the toaster like doesn't stay hot. So how do you keep the toaster running hot all night?
I don't know, especially if it's in a carport. That's the reason why I brought up the carport. It's like, if this was in like your garage, like you got, you know, outlets in your garage. Plug it in there, right? But again, you probably don't need your garage if you got a garage. So that's why why are you putting a toaster underneath the car to begin with?
Yeah, that's a wild move. I never realized that people could like plug their cars into the wall, like just regular old cars, to keep the engine warm on a cold night.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was a thing.
Well, see, my family's from North Dakota, right?
Yeah, sure.
So I remember growing up, we had to get our cars specially made, and everybody used to make fun of my family. You know, we'd have like, you know, our we used to have a big old conversion van, or we had like
sure.
I remember we got a Ford Explorer one time. It was like really, but we used to have literally a cord about 6 inches come out of the front of the vehicle. And people were like, what do you do? Plug your car in to start it? I was like, yeah, when we go up to North Dakota in December, when it gets like 40 below zero.
Yeah.
And that was back when cars, you know, obviously. Yeah. So we literally would plug in the car into an outlet, like an extension cord from one car or from the outlet, and we plug it into our car. Like you wouldn't have to like go in. It was so convenient that you just plug it in.
So I was never familiar with that. Like, I mean, I grew up
even in Denver.
Yeah, I grew up in the Denver suburbs. Everybody had a garage, right? Like, so people, you know, park their car indoors. When my first job in radio was in Northwest Wyoming, and it gets pretty cold up in Northwest Wyoming. And I remember one morning when there had been some snow and ice that moved in. It was going to be really, really cold the next morning. And I got outside because I lived in a duplex and I parked my car like street level. And there was another car that was parked in the house. It was behind the duplex. And I noticed as I was walking toward my car that their car appeared to be plugged in by extension cord to a power outlet. And that blew my mind. I didn't know there was a thing you could do. I was like, what the world? Like, that works? And I get in my old Honda Civic and it turned over just fine. I'm like, I clearly don't need that. I remember driving by the marquee at the bank on Main Street in Moreland, Wyoming. It was negative 36 degrees that morning. We weren't even on the air. Our radio station, our transmitter froze. We weren't even on the air that morning. I get at 6 a.m. They might have been the best news and sportscast of my career. Nobody heard them. We were dead. We were totally dead.
Yeah, we got ours specially. My parents got the car specially made so that this big giant, you know, brown and white conversion van that we used to have that would seat like 15 people. And yeah, out of the front of it would just be this tiny little, you know, outlet that or you know, the end that you could just plug right into. Yeah.
Well, that we know now that's a better solution than a toaster. So who wins today? Toaster guy or the Aggie TSA agent?
Don't be that guy who is that terrible to people traveling. Everybody's already on edge when you're traveling. So don't be that guy. But
no, that person sucks, like obviously, but no, it's a much funnier idea that, oh yes, a toaster will warm my car. Yeah. I'm going to use the same thing that I cook my strudels in. Do they do strudel in Denmark, you think?
I bet it's way better though.
I bet they got incredible breakfast pastries in Europe that I've never even heard of. But you know, that's going to win today, but I don't think that beats No, she made a fake license plate with such low effort that she neglected to make sure her fake tags were actually valid. Just incredible. Crime on top of crime on top of crime usually goes a long way in what is wrong
In
with
a
you.
stolen car.
In a stolen car.
God.
That remains our winner of What Is Wrong With You. Once again, What Is Wrong With You is brought to you by Top City Metal Supply. Metal cut to order when you need it. Top City Metal Supply on South Topeka Boulevard, halfway between Frito-Lay and Forbes Field. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll hear from the Chiefs coordinators, Nags and Spags. We're going to hear from them next on 580 Sports Talk. .440 on 580 Sports Talk. Let's hear from the Kansas City Chiefs coordinators, shall we? Both of them spoke to the media today, and we'll start with the offensive coordinator, Matt Nagy, asked right out of the gate, not surprisingly, about Kadarius Toney.
Kadarius Toney just talked to us in there. Are you working with him this week the way maybe you did with Jawan Taylor? You know, this is where you need to be mindful of it. Is that kind of being stressed this week?
Yeah, it was early on, and he knows it continues. But he also, I think it's a good teaching moment for all of us, for me as a coordinator, for all of us as coaches, for KT. Obviously, none of it was intentional. And I think that's the frustrating part for all of us is in a moment like that. You know that KT didn't do that, maliciously or intentional. And it's a big moment in the game, but it is what it is. And we got to learn from that. If we don't use this lesson to make us better, and it doesn't just have to be being all sides on offense. It's just in general, the rules of the game and making sure that we lock in on that and we understand it and use it to our benefit. But at the same point in time, When the guys got back in the next day and we talked as a group and unit, we're in this thing together. This isn't about one person losing and winning the game. And I think that's probably the biggest message is that when we have an opportunity to win a game, whether it's in the first quarter or whether it's in the fourth quarter to finish it, whether it's 4-minute or 2-minute, behind or winning, we need to do that. We need to finish it. And we can get caught up in being offsides and the play that was taken back, but let's not get caught up on 2nd and 15, 3rd and 15, and 4th and 15. We have a chance with 1:12, 2 timeouts, down 3. We're going to, at worst, tie the game. We need to go down there and win the game. And we didn't do that. And that's, I think, that's the thing that we got to take from this is if we want to be a championship Super Bowl level team, that's got to be a mindset of finishing. And, and it's not a criticism. It's just where we're at. And we've been through this where we start fast, we get leads, Jets, Dolphins, and then we don't finish. Or we get behind the last 3 weeks, 14-0, 14-3, 14-0, and we get behind. We don't start fast. We have a chance to finish, and we didn't do it. So that's the stuff that let's dig into that, and let's understand now when we don't have penalties, when we don't have turnovers, when we execute like we did at the end of the first half and the start of the third quarter last week, we're a pretty good football team offensively, and we help our defense and special teams out. Let's take that first part of the year, the second part of where we're at now, and let's put it all together these next 4 games, starting with New England, and let's get a win. And everything else will take care of itself. But we need to be hard on ourselves as coaches. The players need to do it. And this is where I think real leaders step up. And this is where it's about us. It's not about anybody else. And if you can't be a professional about this as a coach and as a player, you shouldn't be in this profession.
Okay, I want to follow up on that note. I know you talked about, it's no one's fault as it relates to being outside. I know Patrick was asked yesterday about accountability. Mm-hmm. And, that was something I asked him about EB, and he said that he held him accountable. When you look at the drops, lead the league in drops of 33, who is holding, i.e. the coaches or the players, accountable so those drops don't continue to increase that has an adverse effect on how the team is playing and, winning the loss? Yeah, no.
Well, number one, it starts with me, making sure that I, as an offensive coordinator, make sure that these players know that they're accountable, whether that's in practice, getting more catches, whether it's a mindset. It starts with me. So I got to make sure that we're doing that. We as coaches, and that's me coaching the coaches as well, and us doing it together. The players need to do it as well. And again, it's for me more than anything, it has been, we started out at the beginning of the year, we talked about it, and it naturally goes away, but it's still happening. And so we got to make sure that we talk about it. We do everything we can to fix it. And so I can't tell you anything other than we need to just keep making sure that we emphasize it. And then when they get an opportunity to catch the ball, they do it, and we handle it the right way. Yeah, go ahead.
You worry that there's a frustration level that comes with him when guys are dropping. I mean, you're number 1 in drops, and so that's an issue, and that there's a tendency to think, well, Pat's going to come save the day, and even more gets put on his plate.
Yeah, I understand the question, and I think it's probably natural when you just said, the simple fact of the matter is that we do lead the league in drops, so you can start there. So now, when are the drops coming? Why are they coming? There's certain reasons to that, and I think Pat wants to make sure that he can do everything he can to win the game. And if that means that he gets frustrated because he feels like he has to do more or whatever, that's probably a little bit natural. But at the same point in time, I don't think that's why. I think that for him, he just wants to win however we do it and however he can help doing it. We believe in all these guys, and we understand that he's got to be a leader too in this moment. And like, how can we make sure that he's doing everything possible as well?
You said leader. Listen, he always comes out here. He never throws anybody under the bus. He always says he needs to play better. Mm-hmm. On TV, we don't see him go after guys. We've seen Tom Brady go after teammates. Yeah. Is there a time and place where Pat is the guy that needs to hold somebody accountable, that if Pat blows up on somebody, maybe that would be the thing that needs. Well,
I think he does a good job at that, honestly. And there's a lot that everybody sees on Sunday or whenever the game is, and you see that moment for 3 hours. But there's so much more that goes on behind the scenes that you don't get to see, that we do get to see. And I think respectfully, that's probably one of Pat's strengths, is he's so good at being able to lead without having to show a million different ways of how he does it for 3 hours on game day. I think you felt his emotion and passion for the love of the game. He came out the next day and said he wished he would have handled it differently. The emotions are real in the moment. It's hard. It's not easy. So many people talk about the 24-hour rule. When you lose, you say things and you do things you probably wish you didn't do or say. But can you accept it and be able to move on from it and learn? And I think the leadership-wise, there's no better leader than Patrick Mahomes. And I mean that. I really mean that. Like, he does it in different ways, and no one has a better feel than Pat of understanding the differences of how you handle one person versus another. Like, you might be able to handle yelling and screaming, and I might not be able to. Pat understands that. Some people don't understand that. And so I think, like, as a leader in whatever sport, whatever thing you do you have that feel and that instinct? And he has it. And it's not always on 3 hours on Sunday.
A couple of things we've heard a lot talk about this lining up offsides thing. We all know that receivers supposed to look over and do that. But organizationally, as a group of coaches, you guys have a lot of coaches. During the game, do you have someone, quality control person or something, kind of looking at those things too, counting 11 guys on the field, doing those type of things? What is that? How does that work mechanically during the game?
We do. The counting of the players is a must. You have to have that in all phases, offense, defense, and usually special teams a lot. So you have that. And if you get into the whole alignment thing, I mean, that's something that I think the communication between the referees and players usually is pretty good, and it's back and forth. So in the moment, me not so much, just with my role and what I'm doing, but we do have guys that are always on that kind of stuff. And again, like, I've been a part of it as a head coach too, where you have discussions with the referees in between timeouts or during the game. Hey, I'm telling you, I'm giving you a warning. Tell him to get back. If he doesn't, I'm gonna call flag. You have that all the time. So, I think that's a credit to the refs. They do a good job with that, and we have people on our side that do it as well.
So that is what Matt Nagy, offensive coordinator of the Kansas City Chiefs, had to say earlier today. How about his counterpart on the defensive side, Steve Spagnuolo? Here's his press availability from earlier.
Buffalo did a lot of taking guys out of the backfield, kind of avoiding the blitzes and everything that you present to them. Just what are you trying to do to kind of correct those? This is a simple thing, or just something where, like,
one that I'd tip my hat off to them that they had seen, and it would have been, even if we did it exactly right, would have been a tough down to defend. They probably would have got 10, 12 yards. There was one or two others in there of what you're talking about that we just didn't operate like we should have. We could have taken that away, made them throw it down, check down a little. The touchdown, the first touchdown one, I think we can defend that one and what we were in. But, sometimes, and there are some things that we do, and I know it when I call it, that can be a little risky, but it's a risk reward, right? There's a lot of those that you may or may not know that end up being really good for us because it's challenging for them. But I give them credit on at least the one particular play I'm thinking of. It was a good scheme by them for something that they saw. So we'll get that corrected.
What do you see in Bailey Zappe?
I tell you what, I see a really good, efficient football player that can move the ball. I mean, and then I was watching one of the TV games because sometimes I put the TV games on to hear and he's won football games for them. I think they're doing the right things with him. I mean, to me, when they've got either of those running backs going, I think their quarterback becomes really pretty good. And I know they've had injuries at wide out and but those two tight ends now that are both healthy, I think they can be a little bit of a stress on us. We've got to be cautious of that. We probably haven't played. I'd have to think back at the teams we played, but these two tight ends as pass catchers are as good a twosome as I think we've faced.
Probably be a physical challenge as well, the way they play. It's a little more old school. And so is that a different emphasis for you this week? That you actually ready for?
Well, it's not a different emphasis because I'm always talking about that. When teams can be two-dimensional, it makes it tough on us. We're always talking about killing the engine. The engine to us is the running back. We gotta make sure that they don't get him going. And they won't give up on trying to do that. We understand that. Coach Belichick, best in the business. He understands that their defense is terrific. I told the guys the other day that we need to match or be better than their defense to help our team win. And a lot of that is early in the game because we just don't want to be Patrick to be having to go out in the middle of the second quarter down 14 points. I mean, that's tough on any offense. But they're challenging because they play as a team. They win as a team. They find ways to win, and you're on to something. I mean, if we don't bow up and play a physical game to match their physicality, they'll make it tough.
Through the lens of your long coaching career, just how rare is it to have two cornerbacks and what Snead and McDuffie have been able to do this year? To
how versatile they are. Yeah, pretty unique. And that's credit to both of those guys. Like, we haven't had to play LJ inside as much, and you guys all know he can do that. Matter of fact, we just walked through a couple of snaps with him in there just in case, right? You get the injury situation. But Trent gives us a lot of flexibility. And you saw it last week. Chamari Connor is coming on. You know, we knew it was going to be a little bit of a slow process, but anytime we're able to put him in there and keep those two guys outside is good for us. We don't always do it because we like to get the other guys out there too. But having versatility, you know, in any group, but especially in the secondaries.
Facing Juju Smith-Schuster, you know, what do you remember from facing him?
I love Juju. He's an elite competitor. LJ and I were talking about that in Trent. And he's still playing good football. And, you know, he'll be hungry, right? It's his former team. Didn't we face a wideout? Who did we face this year? Or maybe I'm thinking of
Tyreek.
Yeah, Tyreek was one, yeah. McCall originally and with the Jets, yeah. But I think I loved Juju when he was here. I hope he doesn't play real well this week, but I'm always rooting for him.
What's the most important thing about facing them 3-10? Obviously, they're out of the playoff race, but when you look at, you know, people say this could be a get-back game for the Chiefs. So I'm pretty sure Pittsburgh thought that after losing Arizona.
Yeah, no, we don't ever talk in those terms. Like, it's not go play somebody and get healthy and get good. You can't. I mean, with a New England Patriot team, I would never think that way. I wouldn't. I don't really care what their record is, and quite honestly, all we do is, you know, defensively is focus on the 11 guys on offense or however many they put out there that we have to go against. Our job's never going to change. I mean, it's deny points on the board, right, so that our offense can get some and win the football game. But we got too much respect for the coaches there, the players there, what they do. I've seen them move that football now, and that's what we can't have happen.
Coach, we just talked to Nick Bolton, and he says he doesn't feel like he's in full condition yet. But yeah, you know, mentally the guy knows the game.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever. So how did you see him come out, and are you seeing him take the next step in practice?
Yeah, he's a little banged up, and I feel it's unfortunate for Nick because, you know, he had the ankle, right, and then the wrist. It's just been one of those years for him, and he's fighting through some other bumps and bruises that you get when you haven't played, and then all of a sudden you go and play in a game. We tried to spell him. You probably saw in there that Jack went in early. That was planned because you don't want to get. We wanted to make sure, and it did get to. I think we were in the low 70s for plays, and if that happened, we want him fresh at the end because we need all our guys at the end of the game. But he's getting there. He probably answered better than I could, but we love having him in there because of what he does in managing the game for us.
That is Steve Spagnuolo. So you've now heard from both of the Chiefs coordinators. They spoke to the media Thursday, as they always do when the Chiefs play a Sunday game. Biggest takeaway there, and we'll touch on it a bit in the 5 o'clock hour. Steve Spagnuolo saying we got to get off to a better start. We cannot put our offense in a 14-0, 14-3 hole, which they've done the last 3 games. That has to stop. Can it stop? Or have teams figured out the Chiefs on defense? I tend to think that's not the case. I think it can be fixed, and we'll talk a little bit about why later on in the show. Before we get to the 5 o'clock hour, I want to remind you that the most cheerful event of the year returns for another season, bigger and brighter than ever. Zoo Lights, presented by Evergy at the Topeka Zoo, is a treasured, twinkling Topeka tradition. Create memories and traditions at Zoo Lights. Tickets on sale now at topekazoo.org. That's going to do it for this 4 o'clock hour. One more hour to come on the program. Mitch Holthus, the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs, going to join us about 5:35. You're not going to want to miss that. We'll start the hour with headlines as well. Got the Chiefs injury report to get to. Got some KU news to get to. Royals made the Seth Lugo signing official and made a trade today. And I have thoughts on game ball gate from last night's Pacers-Bucks NBA affair that I think is all very, very funny. That's all coming up. Hang with us. Big final hour of the show coming up on 580 Sports Talk. Let's get it. Final hour of the day here on 580 Sports Talk on this Thursday. I am Dan Lucero, solo dolo with you for the final hour of the program. Jake and Brendan have both deserted me, but they'll be back tomorrow. The whole gang will be back in action on tomorrow's edition of the program. We'll preview Chiefs Patriots. We'll talk KU Indiana basketball. That's coming up on Saturday. We'll talk to Matt Derrick of Chiefs Digest. We'll crown a weekly champion of What Is Wrong With You. Tomorrow's a big show, but we got one more hour of today's show, and it'll be a fun one because it always is when the voice of the Chiefs, Mitch Holthus, joins us. And he will join us at about the bottom of the hour, roughly 5:35 is when we'll hear from Mitch and get the voice of the Chiefs' thoughts on where the Chiefs stand heading into the final quarter of the season and their trip to Foxborough to take on the Patriots on Sunday. By the way, I want to remind you that game will be heard on our sister station, the Big Country 94.5 FM. That is due to a scheduling conflict with Kansas State men's basketball that day. K-State taking on Nebraska, 2 p.m. tip-off at Bramlage Coliseum. You'll hear that game here on 580 WIBW FM 104.9, and we'll move the Chiefs over to the Big Country 94.5, starting with pregame coverage at 11 and a kickoff at noon. A rare noon kick for the Chiefs, only their second one of the season. Their first is week 2. I'm pretty certain week 2 against Jacksonville was their last noon kickoff this year. So just a heads up, a programming note for those of you wanting to tune in and hear either the Wildcats or the Chiefs on Sunday on the Alpha Media family of stations. Mitch Holthus will join us in a bit, but first we're going to start this 5 o'clock hour with our headlines here at 580 WIBW. A shout out, of course, to those listening on FM 104.9 in the Topeka metro area, online all over the world at 580WIBW.com, and, of course, on the YouTube stream. Hello to our YouTube viewers. On our YouTube page, 580 Sports Talk, just search 580 Sports Talk at youtube.com. Subscribe today. You can watch our live videos. You can watch archived video content as well, previous day's shows, reaction videos for past games, all that good stuff. And it's all on our YouTube page, and it costs you nothing but your time to subscribe to 580 Sports Talk on YouTube. Let's get to the headlines. Let's start with this. The injury report for the Chiefs. The participation report is out for both the Chiefs and the Patriots for Thursday. 3 players did not practice for the Chiefs today. Mike Edwards continues to miss practice time with an illness. Second straight day, he did not go. Also, the injuries for Isaiah Pacheco and Donovan Smith continue to keep them out of practice. Pacheco has a shoulder injury. Donovan Smith has a stinger, both DNP for the second straight day, and unfortunately trending toward maybe not being available for a second straight week. Nick Bolton was also limited for a second straight day, but he should be good to go for Sunday's game against the Patriots. The good news is an improvement in status for Leo Chenal, who, like Edwards, missed Wednesday with an illness. He was back to being a full participant at today's practice. Also practicing in full, Justin Reed, Jarek McKinnon, L'Jarius Sneed, Kadarius Toney, Drew Tranquill coming back from concussion. He is back for his second straight full day of practice. And Justin Ross, returning to the team off of suspension, was a full participant as well. For the Patriots, running back Ramondre Stevenson missed his second consecutive day of practice with an ankle injury. Trent Brown, who was limited Wednesday with an ankle and a hand injury, was listed as a DNP today, and an illness was added to his laundry list of injuries. So Trent Brown was limited yesterday, did not practice today, starting tackle for the Patriots. Also, defensive back Brendan Schooler was ill today and did not practice. Also joining the injury list for the Patriots today, Matthew Slater, their longtime special team standout. He got a vet rest day, so he was limited. Wide receiver Tyquan Thornton was limited with a hamstring today. That makes 5 wide receivers on the injured list or on the participation list for the Patriots, and all of them were limited today. Also, offensive lineman Tyrone Wheatley is still on the injured reserve, but opened his 21-day window today, it looks like, because he was listed as a full participant coming off of a knee injury. Limited at practice today for the Patriots. Those other 4 wide receivers I mentioned, Juju Smith-Schuster, Devontae Parker, Demario Douglas, and Kayshon Boutte, all limited for a second consecutive day. Defensive lineman Christian Barmore, limited today for the Chiefs. There is a game tonight. There's an AFC West game tonight. It doesn't matter one bit. And I will judge you if you carve out time to watch Chargers-Raiders tonight. That game is gross. Easton Stick, the pride of Creighton Prep High School in Omaha, making his first NFL start at quarterback for the Chargers as Justin Herbert is out for the season. And the Raiders, of course, continuing to start Aiden O'Connell. So it is one of the worst quarterback matchups of the season. Also, both teams will be without their best offensive player. Keenan Allen is injured, will not play for the Chargers. Josh Jacobs, dealing with a groin, will not go for the Raiders tonight. So it is a revolting matchup tonight. And I expect Al Michaels will be appropriately grumpy about it the entire night. In case you were curious, and I admit that I'm not, but maybe you are. I mean, it is football, right? The Raiders are a 3-point favorite, and the total is 35.5. I think I like the under there. Thursday night under. This is a gross game. Even by the standards of Thursday night football, I have a texter from the 913 who says, it's Thursday night. What do you expect? Like, even by the standards of Thursday night football, this is pretty gross. Last week was competitive with the Patriots jumping out to the big lead, holding on to beat the Steelers. And the week before was a actually good Cowboys-Seahawks game. I didn't enjoy the outcome, but it was an objectively entertaining game. But yeah, this game stinks. I am probably not going to be placing any bets on this one. But if I were, the under 35.5 would look pretty appealing. Let's keep it moving. We got some cool news from Kansas State. Cooper Beebe is a consensus All-American, the first offensive lineman in school history to earn the designation. The former Kansas City Piper standout was named a first-team All-American today by the Football Coaches Association of America. And that makes him a consensus, unanimous first-team All-American, honored by all 5 organizations: the Associated Press, the AFCA, Football Writers Association of America, Sporting News, and Walter Camp Foundation. Beebe is the 12th Wildcat all-time to become a consensus All-American. There have been 3 straight years with K-State having a consensus All-American, as Deuce Vaughn turned the trick twice in 2021 and 2022. It's the 14th time in school history that a Kansas State player has earned the honor. There have been two-time consensus All-Americans in K-State history. And Beebe is also the first Wildcat to be a unanimous consensus All-American. So first team, according to all 5 of the major All-American teams. That hasn't happened for a Kansas Stater since Terrence Newman back in 2002. Excuse me. I read, almost transposed a digit there. 2002, Terrence Newman. So this is the first time in 21 years that Kansas State has had a unanimous consensus All-American. Beebe's individual plaudits are well known at this point. 47 starts, 50 games played in his career. First ever 2-time honoree for the Big 12 Offensive Lineman of the Year as a Wildcat. First ever Wildcat to be named a finalist for the Outland Trophy. He's also been named First Team All-American by CBS Sports, ESPN, Fox Sports, Pro Football Focus, Sports Illustrated, and The Athletic. So congratulations to Cooper Beebe. Great news and happy news, and for an athletic department and fan base that has been a little bit short on really joyous stuff the last week or so. Pretty cool to be able to celebrate one of their own. Unanimous consensus All-American, Cooper Beebe. We have KU news as well on our 580 Sports Talk headlines, and it is news of a key contributor, no pun intended, hitting the transfer portal. Defensive tackle Gage Keys announced today that he will enter the portal as a grad transfer with 1 year of eligibility remaining. Keys played all 12 games for Kansas this past season, originally transferred to the program from Minnesota, and had a really nice year, really productive year for the Jayhawks up front. So that is a loss that will be felt. He is just the third member of the Jayhawk football team to put his name into the transfer portal since the portal opened. Gage Keys, defensive tackle, will be a grad transfer. More local sports headlines today. Seth Lugo, formally introduced as the newest member of the Kansas City Royals. It's a 2-year contract worth $30 million with a third-year player option worth an additional $15 million. So you add it all up, it's 3 years and $45 million to the right-hander. We've talked plenty about this the last couple of days since it was initially reported that Lugo would be joining the club. Had a really nice year with the Padres this past year, made 26 starts, threw 146 in the third innings, pitched to a 3.57 earned run average, struck out 140 batters, walked just 36. It was his first year as a full-time starting pitcher. Previously, Lugo had kind of been a swingman, primarily a reliever with the New York Mets. He was a primary starter back in 2017 and then pitched over 100 innings in mostly relief in 2018. But the last 4 seasons with the Mets prior to joining the Padres in 2023, he had only made 7 starts over those 4 seasons, and those all occurred in the 2020 COVID year. So there's not a lot of mileage on Lugo's arm, which suggests that he could enjoy some success into his mid-30s. He'll be 34 when he takes the ball for the first time as a Royal. Just turned 34 a month ago, in fact. Royals had to make room on the 40-man roster to make the Lugo signing official. And to do so, they traded relief pitcher Taylor Clark to the Milwaukee Brewers today in exchange for a couple of minor leaguers. Clark wasn't half bad out of the bullpen in 2022. He was more than half bad out of the bullpen in 2023. Don't really know a nicer way to say it. Pitched 58 games, started 2 as an opener. In 59 innings, posted a 5.95 earned run average, giving up 71 hits and 12 home runs in those 59 innings. Did strike out 65, but walked 24. His walk rate more than doubled from the season previous, when he was actually pretty decent in a more limited role in 2022. He had a 4.04 ERA in 49 innings and walked only 8 to 48 strikeouts that year. But more strikeouts, but more trouble with his command and more home runs given up this past year for the 30-year-old right-hander. And the Royals are moving on from him. Acquired a couple of relievers that do not need to be placed on the 40-man roster. So for now, the 40-man roster for the Royals is full. They still need to clear a spot to make the Chris Stratton signing official. And we'll see what they do. They have not yet announced officially the signing of veteran right-hander reliever Chris Stratton. But when that gets done, they'll have to clear a spot on the 40-man roster. And then, of course, if they do add anyone else, they would have to clear additional 40-man roster space, which you can do by making a trade or outrighting a player to the minor leagues or designating a player for a signing. So those are your local sports headlines. Let's get to some national headlines here. From the transfer portal, a highly touted quarterback finds his new destination. Aiden Childs, formerly of Oregon State, he'll be following his former head coach, Jonathan Smith, to Michigan State for the remainder of his playing career. As a one-time transfer, he's immediately eligible. He will have 3 years of eligibility remaining. If you watched any Oregon State football this last year, DJ Uiagalelei was the regular starter and performed well, had a decent year. But I always felt like their offense had a little more juice with the dual threat of Aiden Childs. He had 4 touchdown passes and 3 rushing touchdowns, completed 69% of his passes, and did not throw an interception in his 35 attempts. And he very nearly beat out DJU for the starting job right away. So Aiden Childs is headed to East Lansing, and he will be their starting quarterback for some years to come, not just a 1-year grad transfer deal, 3 years of eligibility remaining for Aiden Childs of Michigan State. Another highly touted young quarterback is into the portal. We talked a little bit about this with Paul Myerberg in the 2 o'clock hour today. Malik Murphy, quarterback who started games for Texas and kept their Big 12 championship winning season afloat. He is entering the transfer portal and will not be with the team in the college football playoff, which is something he told ESPN he regrets. Quote, "I hate it. I'm super invested in this team. It's hard to walk away, especially at this point during the season." However, this is when the portal is open. This is the choice that you make these kids make who are in the college football playoff. They got to get in the portal to find a new home. And it makes some sense for Murphy to find his new home. He's got 3 seasons of eligibility remaining, and he's got Arch Manning hot on his heels on the depth chart. So Arch will be the backup quarterback for Texas's playoff game, 4 games, backing up Queen Ewers. Malik Murphy started the K-State game. You'll recall if you watched that game, Texas beating Kansas State, and Murphy was really good in the first half and really not in the second half. But he's a big kid with some dual threat ability and very highly regarded. I think he's going to be a hot commodity on the transfer portal. I would have to think Ohio State would be pretty interested, as well as any other high-profile program that is in need of a quarterback. So Malik Murphy into the transfer portal. That was announced today. Some NFL quarterback news. Joe Flacco is the man in Baltimore for the rest of, that's wrong too. In Cleveland. Let's try again. Eventually I'll name the right AFC North team. Joe Flacco. It's so incomprehensible that he is in the NFL at all. Never mind starting for a team with legitimate playoff aspirations. And aspirations is selling it short. Cleveland's going to the playoffs. And Joe Flacco is going to be the guy under center to try and take the Browns into January. He had previously been on the practice squad. He signs a deal for the remainder of the season that could be worth up to $4.05 million in incentives based on winning. He is set to make $75,000 for each of the games he wins the rest of this season. If Cleveland makes the postseason, he would make $250K for a wild card win, $500K for a divisional round win, $1 million for winning the AFC, and $2 million for a Super Bowl win. Right now, the Browns are the number 5 seed, and they're a game clear for the number 5 seed, which would mean they would play whichever division winner has the worst record. Right now, that's kind of trending toward being Jacksonville or whoever ends up winning the AFC South. The Browns are really, really beat up. They've lost Jedrick Wills, their star offensive tackle, for the rest of the season. Grant Delpit is out for the rest of the season. That was announced today, too. So they are all kinds of beat up, but they keep making it shake. And Joe Flacco had a really good game against Jacksonville on Sunday. And so the veteran quarterback, 38 years old, former Super Bowl MVP, is the man in Cleveland the rest of the way. I thought it was over for Joe Flacco the night he lost to the Chiefs in Denver on Thursday Night Football. You remember that game. You remember it for very different reasons. You remember that as the night Patrick Mahomes' knee didn't look like a knee. That's that game. But if you were able to remember anything at all other than the horrifying visage of Patrick Mahomes' kneecap, like laying on the turf at Empower Field at Mile High Stadium, you remember the Chiefs holding the Broncos to just 6 points and making Joe Flacco look miserable. Like, he looked like he wanted to retire on the spot that night. That was 2019. If you told me that night he's going to be starting games for a playoff-bound team in 2023, I wouldn't have believed it. I would not have believed it. One more headline I want to get to real quick. Game ball gate. Did you see this last night? Bucks Pacers in the NBA. We don't talk a ton of NBA on here, so I'll give the short and sweet version of this story. Last night, Bucks at Pacers in Indianapolis. Giannis Antetokounmpo went ballistic. Scored 64 points. That's a new Bucks franchise record. And you know what might be a cool thing to have if you set a franchise record to commemorate the fact that you set a franchise record? It might be cool to have the game ball. That's what Giannis thought. But after the game, he couldn't find the game ball. So in a very measured and reasonable response, he tried to go into the Pacer locker room to go see if they maybe had the game ball, which they did. The Pacers were hanging on to the game ball. Former Kentucky star Oscar Tshiebwe had gotten into the game late and made a free throw for his first official NBA point. And the Pacers decided that's the man who deserves the game ball. Oscar Tshiebwe, NBA first point. Yes, we will commemorate that by making sure he has the game ball. That led to a confrontation between members of the teams in the arena hallway. Pacers general manager Chad Buchanan was elbowed in the ribs by one of the Milwaukee players. All over a game ball? Like, on the one hand, I would think the guy who scored 64 points is more deserving of it than the guy who scored one, personally. But on the other hand, it's Pacers arena. It's their home game. It's their ball. I don't know, man. Giannis, take it easy. Maybe save your jersey. Save your shoes. Display those. I was wearing those the night I scored 64 points. Set a record. Maybe chill out on the game ball. Just a really funny thing that happened last night. That's one of those things that make people go, this league, when talking about the NBA on social media. If you ever see that joke, it's because of stuff like this. All right, we're going to take a timeout. We'll come back. I got a quick Chiefs thought before Mitch Holthus joins us on 580 Sports Talk. $5:30 on 580 Sports Talk. You can't hear it on the stream, on the YouTube stream, but you can hear it on the radio. Man, I love this song. Tame Impala. Anybody else dig that album, Currents? That's one of my favorite albums. I think this is my favorite song off the album. One of my favorites. I always want to, there's some music bands that kind of like to let ride. This is one of them. Sorry to YouTube. You're going to have to imagine it. I don't want to get DMCA'd over this. Mitch Holthus is going to join us in a matter of minutes here on 580 Sports Talk. Voice of the Chiefs joins us every Thursday thanks to Hy-Vee and Azura Credit Union. Can't wait to get his thoughts on several Chiefs-related topics. These are interesting times in the kingdom. We heard from Steve Spagnuolo earlier, his Thursday press conference, and one thing that he discussed was not putting the offense behind the eight ball the way they have the last three games. In the last three games, the Chiefs have been down 14-0 to the Raiders. Of course, they came back and won that game. They were down 14-3 to the Packers. They were down 14-0 to Buffalo. Now, 2 touchdowns is not insurmountable for this offense. Even though this is not the best Chiefs offense we've ever seen, it's still not an insurmountable deficit for the Chiefs to face. But typically, the defense hasn't had those struggles early in games. And it does make you wonder, hey, have they been figured out? Have they been solved? Are they starting to tire? I don't necessarily think that's the truth. I think that there are adjustments that have been made and that teams are maybe attacking this Chiefs defense a little bit differently than they have. But over Steve Spagnuolo's time as the Chiefs defensive coordinator, 2 things have been true about them. Number one, they have played better in the second halves of games than in the first halves of games, typically. They're very good at adjusting on the fly. And the other part is they're very good at adjusting as the season goes around. They are in every way a second half defense. Now, the second half of this season, it maybe feels like, oh, they're getting worse. They're starting slower. But what they end up giving up to the Raiders, 17. What they end up giving up to Buffalo, 20. They had a bad night against the Packers. I really think that was just about losing your starting middle linebacker 4 snaps in and having to go to your third guy in the middle. I think that's a big, big part of that. And even then, I mean, it's not like they gave up 40 points, right? They gave up 27. That's a season high. That's an outlier performance. And it's 27 points. Defense is going to be fine. They're going to make adjustments. They are a second half defense, and we're still in the second half of the season. I think better days are still ahead for Steve Spagnuolo's defense. Better days are ahead for this show because it's going to be less of me and more of Mitch Holthus, the voice of the Chiefs. He's going to join us after this break here on 580 Sports Talk. 5:36 here on 580 Sports Talk. And it is that outstanding time of the week on Thursdays, and we are joined by the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs. Mitch Holthus joins us, a courtesy of our friends at Hy-Vee and Azura Credit Union. And Mitch, we come into this coming off of a pretty rare occasion for the Chiefs this last half decade or so, with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid combining powers. A back-to-back losses for the Chiefs after they fall to the Bills on Sunday. And what stood out about that, certainly in the aftermath, was the uncharacteristic frustration displayed by both Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. Normally guys who are pretty cool customers on the field, at the lectern after the game. There was some frustration there coming from both of those guys. The question I have for you is, what is your perspective on how they plan to channel that frustration moving forward the rest of the way?
Well, I've been with Coach for 11 seasons and Pat since 2017. So that's 7 seasons. And I know where they channel it, and that is to be hyper-focused on beating New England. I think in the case, it's a little bit of the pot boiling over on the stove for both of them. And it wasn't just that game. I've said this to people, but I've been asked the same question. Would they feel better if they were upset about Mahomes lamenting over the offside call? Would they feel better if he would have gone off the week before on the defensive pass interference that was not called on Green Bay, that the NFL has since come back and said, yeah, we blew that one. So would people feel better if that was it? Or was this just the culmination of a lot of things? Honestly, I didn't mind it. I don't like to criticize officiating, but when the game is, the toughest critics of officials, you know who they are?
Who's that?
Officials.
Yeah.
They are. They're the toughest critics of officials are officials. So I've talked to some other officials that were like, oh my gosh, that game. The difficult thing about the Buffalo game is the most defensible call they had was the offside on Tony. That's a defensible call. There is a missed spot of a punt that's blatant that I can't believe happened in an NFL game where they kind of lost track of where the punt went out of bounds. There's the so-called, it's a fumble. Well, wait a minute. That's like the most obvious incomplete pass. But then guys keep running. Creed Humphrey runs 20 yards up the field to try to make a tackle. That's how you get guys hurt. The neutral zone infraction, it was both ways. It was just a rough game for that crew. And yet they kind of get vindicated because the one thing that becomes the national furor was the offside. And Tony was offside. It's clear. So I just think it's the culmination of a lot of things. But I do know this, and I talked to both those guys today. With Coach and Pat, and they're locked in on New England. So that's where they usually go with this. And that's why Pat I'll give you one of the nuggets later on that includes, I think, probably where you think the focus would be.
This is obviously a veteran group, veteran head coach, by now a veteran quarterback, and those things go a long way towards trying to reset and right the ship, or whichever cliche you want to use. But the only other time that the Chiefs have had a stretch like this with Mahomes as the quarterback, you go back to that difficult stretch early in 2021 where the Chiefs came out of the gate. They were 3-4 overall. They had that difficult game against Tennessee where they didn't score a touchdown, and the offense was in a funk at that time. Obviously, there's different personnel and there's different circumstances. This is December. That was pretty early in the season. But what do you remember from how the team reacted, how Mahomes in particular reacted to that period of difficulty, and how can they react in a similar fashion and get focused and get correct in a similar fashion as they did in 2021, where they got on a roll and eventually reached the championship game?
I think it goes, one, you get to your point of lowest common denominator. You try to figure out what's our bread and butter here and then work out from there. And where do you target? Where do you go? Now, to make it difficult, and I mentioned this last week, and it was a nugget, and it's very real, is the fact that Green Bay had 10 days to prepare. And that's a good coaching staff, and they're fighting for their playoff lives, and they showed the Chiefs something they hadn't shown earlier. And then you have Buffalo with 2 weeks to prepare with a team that's desperate to win. And so they blitz more than they have all season long, and that's not been a blitzing team. So they were throwing stuff at the Chiefs they hadn't seen, and you're going to get more this week. So you can say, well, fix it. It's not going to be in a vacuum. Now you're going to play Bill Belichick. He has 10 days to prepare. And so Patrick Mahomes, I say, go to your bread and butter. Where's your lowest common denominator? Build back from there. But Bill Belichick's the best in the business at not letting you do that. For example, one of your nuggets of the night is the fact that Belichick and the Patriots always take Kelsey away. In 7 games, Kelsey is averaging 53 yards a game against the Patriots and has never had a 100-yard receiving game against them because Belichick has always said, that's the guy. If you're going to beat us with somebody else, go for it. But you're not going to beat us with Kelsey going for $150 and 2 touchdowns.
Mitch Holthus is the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs, joining us here on 580 Sports Talk. Thanks to our friends at Azura Credit Union and Hy-Vee. He joins us every Thursday here on the program at this time. Mitch, it is New England this week, and it's not obviously the New England Patriots that we've come to know over the past 20 or so years, the dynasty era, but there's still a ton of regard for Bill Belichick and his coaching staff. You could hear that in Andy Reid's comments earlier this week and Patrick Mahomes' comments earlier this week at their Wednesday press conferences, that there's still a ton of respect for the opponent based on the coaching staff coming in. And you talk about the scheme that Belichick usually deploys to try and take Travis Kelce away. In what other ways, then, can the Chiefs hurt this defense that has actually played pretty good football, even without some big names due to injury?
They have, and let me give you another nugget. I mean, they're only giving up 11 points a game on the average in the last month. That's pretty crazy for a 3-10 team. And with Green Bay, that was a team that was playing better than the record at the current time. Buffalo is a team that's playing better than its current record. And here's New England coming off arguably their best game of the year, where they won at Pittsburgh 21-18. And Bailey Zappi did a really good job in that game. In fact, he's good enough to win. But to answer your question, it's a matter where Belichick taking Kelce away, you can't take everything away. So that leaves some other things open. And sometimes you'll have a chance to get a deep shot that teams aren't giving Kansas City that opportunity necessarily a lot, but you've got to make the play. This means that MVS post play against the Eagles that would have won that game, you're going to get that chance. You've got to complete it if you're MVS. And if you're Pat, you got to make the right read and put it on target. So doesn't have to be a lot, but a Justin Watson catch for 40, an MVS play. Rashee Rice needs to be big in this game. I think that Bill Belichick, when he watches our tape, will go, okay, more than ever, if we take Kelce out, I don't know what they're going to do. I guess they'll try Rice, but he hasn't shown he can be consistent. Rashee Rice could have a big game in this contest. The other guy that I think becomes key here is Jerick McKinnon. Now, there's a very real chance Pacheco didn't go again today. He's not been ruled out. I just saw a pop yesterday. I mean, there's still probably a glimmer of hope, but we will know later in the week. But they might give it, another week. I don't know. But that means then you're down to Deneric Prince, who didn't play at all from scrimmage last week. And then you've got Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and you've got Jerick McKinnon. McKinnon can give you big plays in mismatches against linebackers, or if they're giving so much attention to Travis Kelce that he'll be one-on-one against a linebacker or even a safety, and you can hit him in some deep routes, meaning McKinnon. So Jerick McKinnon could and should have a big game against the Patriots.
Defensively, the Chiefs have had some slow starts on that side of the ball the last 3 weeks. Steve Spagnuolo talked about that at his press conference earlier today, that they want to stop putting the offense into holes. It was 14-0 against Vegas. It was 14-3 against Green Bay. It was 14-0 against the Bills. Some of that, I would imagine, has to do with the rest advantage and the game plan advantage that teams have had against the Chiefs, and that, again, the Patriots will have with having come off a Thursday night game, being able to maybe script some more stuff against the Chiefs defense. But how do the Chiefs punch back? They've been a great second half defense, both in terms of game-wise and season-wise under Steve Spagnuolo. They seem to get stronger as the year goes on. What is the counterpunch for this Chiefs defense to try and get an earlier toehold in the game and make sure the offense doesn't have to fight back from a 2-score deficit?
Well, Dan, your point about the extra time to prepare by the opponents in this instance is where I think it's had its most significance, because Spags is saying, hey, this is stuff we haven't seen. They also have created mismatches using the running backs in the passing game. Think about what the Packers did. They did that early. They used James Cook, the Bills did early, in the running back mismatches against the Chiefs with some formations they hadn't shown. So they put in some special stuff. Well, guess what? Guess what? How New England won last week against the Pittsburgh Steelers. They targeted Ezekiel Elliott 7 times. He had 7 catches out of the backfield. That and using Hunter Henry at tight end. They also have Mike Gesicki. So they've got dudes that they can control the game with Bailey Zappi. But I would say, first of all, you got to stop the run, and that's obvious, Captain Obvious here. But it's the running back and the tight end in the passing game early to clamp down on that. And they got Zeke Elliott going against the Steelers. New England did in the passing game. So that's where you start. It's not just the runs, but don't get caught and give up a 20-plus yard play to a running back who's running a wheel route down the field against the linebacker or some mismatch. So that's where I think it starts, because if you can do that to this team, Buffalo would have countermeasures, although the Chiefs were able to pretty much corral those. And same with Green Bay. But this team would have even more challenge if you take Zeke Elliott or Hunter Henry, at least neutralize it where they're not just getting controlled first downs and have a 7-play, 75-yard drive for a touchdown using the RB and the tight end in the passing game.
What in your mind is the biggest must for the Chiefs in this game? If they're going to get out of Foxborough with a win for a second consecutive time, the last meeting there was in 2019, a hard-fought 23-16 Chiefs victory. They're going to go to Foxborough, win again, get back on the winning track. What is the biggest must for the Chiefs in this matchup?
7-play, 75-yard drives. No holds, no drops, no penalties, no offensive pass interference. And they can do that. We've seen instances. The Miami game in Germany, they did that. The Raiders game, once they got rolling, they did that. They even did it a little bit, for sure, against the Eagles, which is hard to do. But that's what they need to do in this game. 3 drives of 75 yards and the touchdown. And then maybe add a field goal here or there, try to get to 24 to 27 points. But just pristine drives, execution, extra focus. You know who gives them a chance to do that? And I'm going to give you a wild answer to this. Who gives them a better chance to have the more pristine 7-play, 75-yard drive? You know who it is?
Who is that?
Wanye Morris. Wanye Morris gave up the play that I talked about that was incomplete but ruled a fumble and should have been ruled an incompletion right away because Von Miller got him. The 20-yard screen pass, go back and try to watch the All-22 on the Clyde Edwards-Helaire screen pass of 20-plus yards. Wanye Morris goes from like left side hash to the right side numbers and makes key blocks. He did not have the critical hold or false start that has been happening with either Juwan Taylor or Donovan Smith. He didn't. And not that he played a perfect game, but he played a game at left tackle that was super hopeful, not just this year, but for the future. And if you make an impact play, get to the second level, watch him if you get the All-22 on the Jerick McKinnon touchdown run of 7 yards. He obliterates Greg Rousseau. So I think Wanye Morris gives you a chance to be more pristine, even being a rookie at left tackle, to have 3 7-play, 75-yard drives. If you get that in this game, you'll win this game.
All right, Mitch, before we let you go, I need the juiciest nuggets of the night from you.
This is the first game in NFL history. The league started in 1920. The 100th year was the year we won Super Bowl 54. So first game in NFL history where the 2 head coaches have combined 500-plus wins in the regular season and 600-plus wins when you count in the postseason.
Wow.
The last time the last time any game was even this close to the two coaches involved at that high a level of winning was 1987 when Don Shula of Miami was against Tom Landry of Dallas. You're going to hear on the broadcast and see, if you're watching and listening, history. Because who knows if this will happen again. It's not assured that Belichick will coach again. But the fact that you have, this is the essence of Papa Bear Hallis against Vince Lombardi. You're going to go back in a time machine and see two of the top four winningest coaches all time go against each other. Here's another one. This is where I was leaning to. All right, here's one that's not so fun. I'll give you two more. One that's not so fun, and then one that should give you hope. The Chiefs this year, when allowing 20-plus points, are 0-4. Ouch. Last year, Dan, the Chiefs, when they allowed 20-plus points, were 9-2.
Wow.
It was the best record by a team in the league with that circumstance since 1940.
Yeah, that's
Patrick Mahomes. Here
incredible.
you go. Patrick Mahomes. Here's another one. Patrick Mahomes. Okay, the Pats are 3-10. Patrick Mahomes is 31-1 as a starter against teams that lost 10-plus games in a season. It was last year's Colts game.
Wow.
Mahomes against teams that have entered the game with 4 games below 500 is 12-0. And Patrick Mahomes' last 3-game losing streak, 2016 Texas Tech.
Yeah, it's been a while, and it'll be certainly a motivated and fired-up Chiefs team that comes out of the tunnel at Gillette Stadium on Sunday. Mitch Holthus will have the call, the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs. He joins us here on 580 Sports Talk, courtesy of Hy-Vee and Azura Credit Union. Mitch, we enjoy it so much, as always, every time you're on with us. Safe travels to New England, and bring home a victory on the flight home.
You got it, Dan. The challenge you always give me is to bring some nuggets, so I think I brought you a few tonight.
You absolutely did. You crushed it, Mitch, as always. Thanks so much.
Thanks, bro.
That is Mitch Holthus. We're going to take one final break here on 580 Sports Talk. Before we do, a quick reminder that Mitch's broadcast in the Chiefs Radio Network will be heard on our sister station on Sunday, the Big Country 94.5 FM. That's due to a scheduling conflict with K-State men's basketball. So if you're looking for the Chiefs on the radio and Mitch's Golden Pipes on the call on Sunday, the Big Country 94.5 FM, pregame at 11 a.m., kickoff at noon. A final word next here on 580 Sports Talk. Wrapping up this edition of 580 Sports Talk with the final word. I'm Dan Lucero. It's a very quick final word because we got to get out of here, but we got Thursday Night Football on the air tonight. You can hear the Westwood One coverage of tonight's Thursday Night Football game, the Chargers and the Raiders. And if you think for a moment, man, this has been a frustrating year for the Chiefs, just remember, it could be worse. You could be headed toward firing your coach and starting Easton Stick at quarterback tonight. Hey, maybe next year, Chargers. Goodness knows somebody's going to buy into the hype, hook, line, and sinker and pick the Chargers to win the AFC West next year. Because it happens every year, perpetually next year's champions, the Los Angeles Chargers. But you can hear the game tonight here on 580 WIBW and FM 104.9. That's going to do it for us tonight. Washburn Basketball Coaches Shows over on Classic Country 106.9 FM. Top of the hour, Brendan Dworzynski is there. Brendan, Jake, and I will be back with you tomorrow at 2. Hope you will join us. For Jake and Brendan, I'm Dan. This has been 580 Sports Talk. We'll see you tomorrow.